are returning to open session at 7:06. Are there any citizens in the audience? Seeing none. So, Haley, would you mind reading the district mission statement?
Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice in demonstrating competency.
Thank you. All right, announcements and special acknowledgements. Start with a couple announcements. High school graduation will take place Sunday, June 7th at 10 a.m. The last day of school for students in grades 1 through 11 is Tuesday, June 23rd, and the last day for students in pre-K and kindergarten is Wednesday, June 17th. Did you want to go next, Dr. Blake?
Sure. So I have just a shout out for our retirees this year. We have Donna Blake, who is a teacher at the Doyon School. We have Kim Carbonneau, who is RBT at Doyon. Whitney Cardew, teacher at Doyon. Heather Chang, the high school, middle high school librarian. We have Jamie Fremont Smith, who works in all 4 buildings. Heidi Kent, she's the special education secretary at central office. We have Maureen Lukey leaving at the end of this year, who's the interim principal. Mary Manos, teacher here at the high school. Meg Smith, a teacher at Winthrop, and Cynthia Welch-Filipino, also a teacher at Winthrop. So congratulations to all of them on their retirements this year.
Oh. Wow. I know Haley has one. We'll take yours last. Does anybody else have any? I got a little list, quick list. It's been a while since we met. The middle school performance of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was wonderful. STEAM showcase, I don't know who else went, but it was a huge showing. A lot of people there, and that was wonderful as well, and super impressive to hear the students, speak to their projects. The multilingual showcase, that's the first time I went this year, and highly recommend. It was so unexpectedly moving. I didn't know what to expect, and it was phenomenal. So, anybody else? All right, let's move to Haley.
Yeah, we just want to say thanks to Jack for his contributions this year as the student representative. Wish you well. You'll be going to Mass Maritime to focus on marine engineering. And yeah, so we just want to thank you. We have a little gift for you.
Yay. Oh, I'm going to give him this too, Haley. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. It's a pleasure.
See you Sunday, Jack.
All right, so nice and timely. We are on to a graduation class report out, and we welcome Principal Mitchell.
Graduation report out?
Well, just on the senior class, similar to what we did last year.
Oh, sure. Sure, so Wednesday night we had our annual baccalaureate ceremony, and I commented at the time that one thing that set the class apart was their service to others. And this class was responsible for rebooting our day of service after a year when we didn't do it because there's just so many logistical hurdles that we just figured it was not worth it. But through the persistence of members of our senior class, especially our NHS president, Mandy Lavoie, they made it a reality. And it really, truly is a student-driven day. It is not one that is organized by adults. Sure, we give them some feedback and help and run interference for them, but really it's a student-driven thing. The Interact Club and the money that they raised for libraries and stoves in impoverished communities in Central America, and the blood drive, just a ton of volunteering. Everyone did the 28 hours of community service. Sometimes we get a handful of kids who just don't bother to do it, and they don't get the credit on their transcript, but everybody did it for this graduating class. And if you come to graduation, you hear my comments on Sunday that they're also a very personable group. They have a knack for conversation. which sometimes is detrimental to them, but other times it's a real benefit, especially given the context of the world where everyone's down on their phones and they're not making eye contact. This class has always been very personable. They have a great sense of humor. I've enjoyed talking with every one of them and seeing them grow over the last few years, so I'm really looking forward to Sunday and seeing them off. And hopefully, it'll be outside. Weather's looking good.
There was one student who had an excessive amount.
Yeah, so we have the 28 hours, and he was at like almost 700 hours, because he just volunteered over the summer as a camp counselor, didn't get paid, so he exceeded it by like 600 some hours. That was Van Souza, yeah.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Happy to answer any questions you have about the seniors. I can answer them, but again,
Any
I
questions?
encourage you all to attend graduation on Sunday. Let us know if you want to come. We'll make sure you get some tickets for you. You'll get to hear Jen talk.
All right, thank you for that. Well, you don't have to move far because next up is handbook updates and potential approval. Going first.
Sean Fitzgerald is here from the middle school since Pete is in Washington DC with the 8th grade class. We had talked as an administrative team earlier on about the handbook updates that were requested this evening. The elementary schools made a conscious decision to wait till Jamie started, and so theirs will come at the last meeting in August or the first meeting for approval.
Great. First off, welcome to our new school committee members. Welcome aboard. Greg, great to have you back. Thank you. So the addition to the middle school handbook is a tech policy addition. This language is actually already included in the handbooks of the other schools in the district, and so this will make us uniform throughout. It reads, in using district technology, students agree to abide by the guidelines outlined in the Student Computer Use Agreement. This agreement ensures responsible and ethical use of district-provided technology, fostering a safe and productive learning environment for all. Students are expected to familiarize themselves with the terms of this agreement and adhere to its principles at all times while using district technology. Violation of the Computer Use Agreement may result in disciplinary action. Ipswich Public Schools uses artificial intelligence responsibly, transparently, and with academic integrity to support learning while keeping human critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills centered. There's a link there to the parent and guardian and student AI statement. And so the acceptable use policy is shared with families and students at the outset of every school year and signed off by families as well.
That was the only change in your handbook.
Yes, yep, the only change we have currently.
Yeah. Any questions?
Support.
Okay, motion to support by Greg. By Paul. All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. I just want to call out, I appreciate, I was doing a deep dive in these because the policies often refer to the handbooks, or handbooks refer to the policies, and I appreciate how several of the handbooks say it, but you have a little, hey, if you want to see a policy, go here, because sometimes they're not being updated at the same time, so that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. While I'm here, I'll share that all the feedback I've received from our students down in DC has been nothing but positive. They have been very busy. They hit the ground running. As you might know, the students were here at 3:45 yesterday morning. Every student was here on time, took the plane to DC, and they have been very busy, and I think they'll sleep very well tonight. We expect them back tomorrow evening. So,
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there high school, or are we holding on that?
Nope, there are high school.
Okay. Is it in
I feel
here?
bad because it seems like every year there's a lot of changes to the high school year handbook, but I think we go through a lot of years where there aren't changes, and then all of a sudden, for a few years in a row, we get a bunch of changes. But anyway, similar to the middle school, we have a new artificial intelligence statement that's consistent with the policy we're implementing across the district. I don't know if you want me to read that again, or?
I don't think so, yeah. Did you send a document?
In there?
I can
It is?
share with you right now if you
one.
want.
I have the
That's the old-
25,
yeah.
26 one.
This 8B?
that's the one, current one. I don't think we have the one with the highlighted changes in it.
Yeah, AB 2026. What Sean just read off, is it the?
I shared with all of you, so I think hopefully you just
Okay,
got an
thank you.
email, or very
Yep.
soon you get an email.
Wonderful. Oh, this is helpful. Okay,
See some of you popping into it.
yeah, so go ahead.
The quiet, I think I heard the strains of Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. Sounded amazing. I can't wait for the Pops concert.
When is the Pops concert? I know it's in
Monday the
Ipswich.
8th.
Always the Monday
know.
after graduation.
And it will be streamed as well.
So it's 34, page 34 is the updated? That's what's highlighted?
Anything that's yellow highlight is an update, so I didn't want to read
Okay, so
I
throughout.
start at the top, so the first thing you would come to the artificial intelligence statement.
Okay, gotcha.
Then the next one would be under our attendance policy. It's on page 7, if you're looking at the numbers at the bottom of the page. The added language is, if a student has an appropriately documented disability and either an individualized education program and/or a Section 504 plan that specifically accommodates medical absences, principal will not reject valid documentation that aligns with those legal accommodations. In instances of chronic, extended, or patterned absences, the school may require parents to sign a limited medical release form so the school nurse or administration can identify the educational accommodations or timeline required for student safe attendance. Failure to provide clarification or allow communication regarding extended absences may result in the documentation being deemed insufficient and the absences marked as unexcused. I had a word in here with safe attendance. I had students compulsory and safe attendance, but I don't know if maybe the lawyer deleted that. It's hard to
Okay,
tell.
that was a question I had is, were these, some of the relevant changes reviewed with
I
council?
believe Dr. Blake shared that with
Yes.
Okay.
legal counsel. So that's
Thank
probably
you.
why compulsory got taken out.
Okay, so you updated great, okay.
The next passage, I think it's on the next page. It starts out with in accordance with MGL Chapter 71, Section 370. This was just a proactive thing that we heard. A recent story came out in the commissioner's update one week about making sure that we have policies in place to protect staff and students from deep fakes and other kind of unauthorized use of name, image, and likeness. So it's just some language that we put in here for that. Ipswich High School prohibits any form of bullying or cyberbullying that utilizes technology to infringe upon the personal dignity and identity of others. This prohibition includes the use of generative artificial intelligence and synthetic media. Below is a non-exhaustive list of actions that are strictly prohibited and classified as forms of harassment or cyberbullying. Creating deepfakes or synthetic content, the use of AI or analog tools to create, post, or distribute images, videos, or audio recordings that falsely represent a student or staff member. This includes, but is not limited to, face swapping, AI voice cloning, or the digital manipulation of a person or person's likeness into compromising, mocking, or defamatory contexts. Unauthorized use of name, image, and likeness. Students may not capture, use, or disseminate the name, photo, video, or digital likeness of any member of the IHS community without express written or verbal consent. Digital impersonation. Impersonating a student or staff member through the creation of social media accounts, profiles, or digital messages, e.g. parody accounts or fake text threads, with the intent to humiliate, intimidate, or cause a disruption to the educational environment. These policies apply not only on school grounds or during school-sponsored activities, but also off-campus and online. If the creation or distribution of synthetic media or unauthorized use of NIL occurs outside of the school hours but creates a hostile environment at IHS, infringes on the rights of the victim at school, or materially and substantially disrupts the educational process or orderly operation of the school, students will be subject to school-based disciplinary action, which may include suspension, expulsion, and the loss of all take-home school-issued technology. Further, pursuant to Massachusetts privacy and harassment statutes, the school reserves the right to report the creation of harmful synthetic media to the Ipswich Police Department, especially in cases involving non-consensual intimate imagery or identity theft. That's a lot, and some of that language is taken right from other parts of the law. You know, the material substantially disrupts the school learning environment. That's taken from elsewhere in Mass General Law. We did, so just a process question I forgot to talk about at the beginning. So as you know, our school council meets to look at all the language in our handbook, and this is one thing that we spent a couple meetings on, hammering out the specific language to make sure it would be a good addition and met checked all the boxes we needed to make sure we kept staff and students safe from this new threat to our identities. You want me to just go through these and then ask questions at the end, or you would just kind of stop?
One second, in the email that I had sent to legal, it had the word compulsory in it, so it must have just,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know how it got deleted there,
Okay.
but that's what was approved.
Okay, I'll put compulsory back in then.
Is it okay to ask questions?
I think it's all right, we'll just go section by section if there's
Sure.
questions. Okay, go ahead, Haley.
I just feel like I'll forget.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to understand sort of a process around, obviously, if something happens outside of school, like, how do you even begin? I'm not in disagreement with any of what's written here. It's good to see it. It's unfortunate that it's needed, but I understand why it is. But so just thinking about if it happens outside of school, like, how do you manage that?
The bullying law that was passed probably about a decade ago now kind of opened the door as a precedent for schools to start to apply consequences if we can show a situation where outside of school, whether it's online or, you know, face-to-face old school bullying, impacts school as, you know, the process of school and education. If it impacts that, we can act upon it. So it set the precedent, so we figured we'd just kind of apply that that precedent to this, you know, expansion of what cyberbullying could mean.
Thank you for that. I want to call it that we looked into this, like, kind of at surface level in policy. So, but we didn't feel like we were the group to get into the nitty gritty of it. So I think it's really nice that you included this, and it, you know, is certainly in line with what we had discussed at like the high level. So this is great.
School council saw it as an opportunity to kind of be cutting edge. We took a lot of pride in the fact that not many school districts across the state had a policy that addressed this specifically, so we're particularly proud of this particular.
Well done. Great.
Maybe the
That's wonderful.
Attorney General come and do a story on it.
Yeah.
Attorney General will visit us again, yeah.
There will be many unions that are also
Yeah.
very happy to see this language and these policies, because there isn't another union that we could use as an example with this language.
Wow.
We're also protecting staff in a way that other unions are not protected, which is very strong.
Great.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Go team.
Can I ask a quick one
Principals
about?
are also subject to this kind of thing, so.
Probably school committee.
I'm just wondering how relevant this might be at a middle school level. Like, are you guys seeing this kind of thing as well? Sorry.
No, that's a great question. Yeah.
I would say my awareness of the development of this policy has been very limited to this point, and so, no worries. There's a lot going on these days. So as John's reading it here, I'm thinking I'd like to talk to him some more about it. I think bring it to our school council as well. I'll share that we've seen some similar issues this year in the middle school as well as technology is evolving. Some issues across middle and high school as well that John and I have worked on together this year, and so I think in listening to him and the development of this policy, I think it's definitely something the middle school would be interested in pursuing further as well. Yep.
Great.
Can this be added to the middle school one at this point?
I think at this point, because we haven't talked about it with our school council
Oh, okay.
at all
Okay.
yet, and so I would say I think it'd be a little bit premature
Okay.
for us to adopt it immediately, having just heard the policy in its entirety, you know, when John read it. But I think we're at the tail end of the school year now, and as John was reading, I was making a note to talk to Peter and put it on our agenda for school council at the outset of next year. So I think something we will certainly talk about and would look to implement, I think, on the surface.
Would the timing of that allow for a change enough so that they can sign off on it at the beginning of the year? I don't want to lose a whole year of protecting
Yeah, no, I think, and I think we've done handbook editions midstream in the past, when we've brought things to our school council when they're timely enough and, you know, added and publicized. I think also in hearing about how the elementary schools are looking at some handbook editions in late August, I think this is probably something, we don't have any more school council meetings scheduled for the rest, before the beginning of next year, but I think it's something him and I could talk about, we could be ready, and probably implement at the outset of next year without, we could publicize to parents, let them know it's been added at this point. I don't want to get ahead of my skis right now, but I think it's something we could put into place. I also think the current, as I was thinking about it, I think the current cyberbullying policy covers this somewhat, and when we've addressed it this year, we've referred back to that in the bullying law this year, so I think we are somewhat protected right now, but this is obviously an incredibly positive step forward, I think.
Totally.
I think a lot of the old bullying language says including but not limited to, so it kind of leaves the door open for a lot of interpretation.
Haley, I think your question was dead on, because lots of times when these situations do occur, that is usually the first question I get from parents, and my refrain is kind of, we're not the social media police as administrators of the school, but when something's brought to our attention and it's impacting kids here at school, then it becomes our business and something that we have a duty to address. So, yeah, but it is murky, right, how things can happen outside of school, and it's not at school, but then inevitably we do see these situations bleed into school and impact students, and so, yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next change is in our honor code. The old language said that if a student admits their infraction, the teacher will allow students to mitigate the consequences. The language change, where it says at the teacher's discretion, the student may, it gives the teacher some flexibility, so they're not handcuffed into necessarily always allowing a student to mitigate the consequences. Our teachers felt very strongly about that, especially in this era where it's become so much easier to use artificial intelligence to cheat on assignments. They thought that that was really important, and we agreed, so that's why we added that.
So one of the things we struggle with, how do we deal with honor code? We developed a remedial program, not just punitive, but also how do we educate and lead and mentor students? Have you contemplated, because all I see is punitive actions.
Yeah.
What about remediation?
Sure. And I think that's when at the teacher's discretion it comes in. So depending on how much the teacher has preventatively talked about how to properly cite things and how to do things properly and not copy and paste and make sure their citing works. Others' ideas is
after the violation.
After a violation?
I mean, like, what kind of, I think there's, so maybe you and I can have a discussion about, depending on the seriousness of the violation, just, all I see is the punitives, right? But there's also a mentoring and kind of an education process on the back end of the violation. Not, at the front ending, it's great, but what happens if, after all that front ending, somebody has an error? In judgment, a lapse in judgment. How do you do the additive steps on the back end of that to kind of lead them away from repeat?
Yeah. Yes, I hear what you're saying, and I think our staff's response would be that consequences are also instructive, and
they are. But
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
but someone should not lie, steal, or cheat, right? Or I'm sorry, lie. Yeah. Everybody does at some point. I hate to sound like a cynic, and so,
believe me, our philosophy on things is everyone deserves a second chance, and I think we don't want something surely to follow them throughout their whole time at the school. And so we want them to make sure that they are learning so that they're not making the same mistake again. And so we always have a conversation, it's either going to be me or the assistant principal who sits down with the parent and the student, and we say, look, think about this mistake as the mistake that saved you $200,000, because if you do this in college, you could get thrown out, and you'd be out your tuition. So make the mistakes now in a supportive environment and learn from them so that in the future you don't do the same in college when the stakes are a lot higher. So, yeah. It's not captured in our grid here, but we do have those conversations. Yeah. The most controversial change, I think, is the next one. Page 23, it says vape alert presence. So you've heard me speak a lot about the vaping issue at the high school. And, Sean has led the charge in a lot of ways, spearheading the effort to get the vape detectors in the bathrooms, which are phenomenal. So coupling that technology with our cameras, we're able to set a window, like if the vape alert goes off, we get an email, and we can see who was in the bathroom at the time the alert happened. However, when I go up to the room, because I don't call them down to the office, I don't know what the middle school does, but if we were to call a student down to the office, it's easy for them just to ditch what they have, either flush it down the toilet or whatever. And with our low flush toilets now, it might be harder to do that. So it's a side comment. So I bring a student in my office, and I search text. Just the nature of the search is I just turn out. I want to see the pockets turn inside out. I want to see the socks. And then if they have a hood on, I want to see what's in the hood. So it's not an invasive search. The students know that. So they're putting either in their bra or their underwear somewhere where they know that we can't search. So after a year of frustration and keeping a spreadsheet through probably March, when I just gave up because it was too much to keep entering all these people who had been in the bathroom, I was keeping a log of all the times that we got a vape alert and all the student names. I saw the same names showing up over and over again. So to try to address that, we're modeling this on Essex text policy, where if you are in the bathroom when the vape detector goes off, you're just going to get an email from us. Hey, just a heads up. It's the first time the vape detector went off. Your kid happened to be in the bathroom. We don't suspect it. We just wanted to put it on your radar. The second one, could be another parent phone call. And the middle school has this program called Life Skills, where you can put a kid. It's not a punishment. It's not a discipline. It's an educational opportunity. They go online. It's a little module that takes, how long is like the?
Varying lengths, depending on what you choose. An hour, 3 hours, 6 hours.
So again, like a progressive, like if it's their first, we'd put them on the hour program where the kid goes online, they get some education, they take a quiz, and then they finish the program. If there's, again, obviously progressive discipline could lead to detention. If it continues, it could go up to in-house, in-school suspension, or out-of-school suspension. So I'm not sure. I haven't talked to anyone at Essex Tech to see how the policy has gone over there, but I feel like there needs to be something else that's going to, it doesn't do us any good to have these really nice vape detectors if we can't, stop them from going in there. And I've heard some students, I was actually outside of a bathroom a couple weeks ago where the girls' bathroom, obviously I can't go in there, but when I get to the bathroom during passing time, I can go in the boys' bathroom, get a count. I don't let any more than 3 boys in the bathroom at a time because there's only 3 fixtures. I don't know how many girls have beat me to that spot and gone into the bathroom yet. So I thought there was only 1 or 2 girls in there. And so as I stood there, one girl after another was coming out of the bathroom. It must have been 7 or 8 girls coming out of the bathroom that has 4 stalls. And some were the regular customers, if you will. And one of the girls she was going to peek her head into the bathroom to go in there, and then she came out. I was like, what's wrong? She's like, I don't want to get jumped, she said. So I feel like we need to make sure that kids who just want to use the bathroom can feel safe to go in the bathroom without fear of any kind of physical interaction or being brought into a dragnet of suspected vape use. So this seems kind of like a drastic measure, but I want to give it a shot and see if we can do our best to stamp out what I think is a fairly stubborn problem. I don't know about how widespread it is, but it's a pretty stubborn problem with a group of students in the school.
I'm really happy to see this here after 2 years on Student Advisory Council. I mean, that this topic has been one of the ones we talk about the most. And I think to your question on the last policy, what's not captured here are all of the things that you're doing in between to talk to students about, do you need help? Like, is this an addiction issue? We know that that's a part of this. How, if you're interested in quitting, how can I help you? Like, you're doing all of those things. And so, again, that's not captured here, but that's part of what's the dialogue that's happening. And the reason that the parent piece is so critical to this is because in order to help students with an addiction like this, their parents need to know. So yes, it's under consequence, but I don't think it should be viewed as punitive. It should really be viewed as collaborative and helpful. And if I were a parent with a child with vaping issues, I would be really appreciative that outreach is happening.
And thank you for that. So when I was keeping track of that list, I was having conversations with parents saying, hey, your son or daughter's been in the bathroom many, many times here. Out of the 80 vape alerts we've gotten, your son/daughter was involved with 60 of them. You can draw your own conclusions. I've had some parents say, thank you very much for this. I'm going to, take my kid to the pediatrician and have, get their advice. To parents who say, oh, it's not my kid. There's no way. You must be wrong. It's just a pure coincidence. So there's various levels of reaction from parents. So to be expected. But yeah, you're right. There's there's stuff in here that's educational that's not captured in this grid, but we do those things. Okay. The next one was dress code. We tried to modify a dress code to allow certain headwear in school, and it kind of backfired because some students we're trying to be sensitive to cultural headwear and allow students to wear headwear that's consistent with their culture. And some students took advantage of that, even though they're not from a culture that has that kind of headwear, they started wearing it. So we're trying to tighten things up again. That's the second part there, to ensure the safety of students. Any non-religious cultural headwear, including hoods, that potentially conceals a student's identity or inhibits hearing is not permitted inside the school building. So we hope that captures that. And some of our teachers felt very strong, even though our legal counsel last time we made changes, the dress code said, don't have specific things in here about spaghetti straps and specific words and things like that. If it's disruptive to the learning environment, then you can address it. The teachers felt strongly, and so this is kind of a compromise, that first highlighted passage. Administration reserves the right to restrict the tie that interferes with the orderly function of the school. Just kept it general. So I told teachers in a staff meeting, if you have a kid who's wearing something you find is disruptive to your learning environment, feel free to send them down. I'll have a conversation with them. I've had those conversations with myself, with a kid, in the cafeteria comes back from spring break and they've got a shirt with a keg on it or something. I went to Cancun and all I got was this keg or some stupid thing. I said, look, you can't wear that in school. And 10 times out of 10, the kid says, oh, sorry, I wasn't even thinking. I just put it on because it was clean. They don't wear it again. So I think it's just a matter of, again, those conversations. Some teachers push back on that. And I said, look, we have kids who work at True North. We have kids who work at the Ipswich Brewery, and sometimes they wear those T-shirts to school. It's not disruptive to the learning environment. So, I asked the kids in the school council, I said, if you see a kid wearing a Budweiser shirt, is it disruptive to class? They're like, I don't pay attention to what kids are wearing. So I think it's disruptive to the teacher sometimes, but it's not disruptive to the learning environment. So if it bothers the teacher, they can send the kid to us and we'll deal with it. We added, in the sexual harassment part, we added or a staff member because the language said if a student has sexually harassed another student, so we put or a staff member in there. The next one is just the honor code, we already talked about. It's in multiple places. Personal property, we put that in there because the student had his, I always mix it up, AirPods. I always mix up AirPods or AirBuds. But anyway, a kid left them on the lunchroom table, and one of his friends passed them around the table, and somehow they ended up in a cup of orange juice, and then they stopped working after that. So while we felt bad about that, we didn't think it was the school's responsibility to have to replace those AirPods. It's up to the individual students who were involved to do that. So I thought that we needed some language in there to protect our personal property. To protect ourselves from being liable for kids' personal property, especially with phones and earbuds getting so expensive, and everyone seems to have them. Stop me if you have questions about this stuff.
Did somebody get in trouble for putting them into the soda?
It was inconclusive for us to be able to figure out who actually did it, because the cameras, to try to zoom in, once you zoom in on a table, it gets really grainy, so it's hard to tell what's going on sometimes, but we put our usual pressure on kids to expose the truth, but they didn't crack in this instance.
Was that requested? Was that like something they were looking for the school to compensate?
It was kind of insinuated, and I thought that it was going to be the next step. So I said, well, maybe we should, get out in front of this for our next handbook just to protect ourselves a little bit. Just temporarily on page 41, I just crossed out the sports user fee, because I know that's kind of an object of discussion about what we're going to do with that. So I just wanted to cross it out pending a decision from the committee about user fees. We changed our honors cutoff reception our cutoff for the honors reception to 3.74 and 3.9.
What was it before that?
I think it was 3.5 and 3.74.
Okay.
Then we had the issue of the bridge programs on page 45, where we had 3 different documents saying 3 different eligibility criteria. So this year, we took the lowest, the least rigorous criteria for kids to be eligible to participate in bridge, and we adopted those. And then this is the way we addressed the discrepancy, is to refer every other thing. So there's a copy of this, a very similar copy of this in our program of studies. It says, for eligibility criteria, please refer to the bridge application. So we don't have to keep updating it 3 different places. The application is going to have the final say for criteria.
I have a question.
Sure.
Back to the honors reception.
Yep.
I believe it was, you said 3.5 and above.
I believe so.
I recall at the honors reception every year, there's also the athletic criteria for honors, like playing 2 sports and acquiring a GPA of 3.5. Will that shift for the athletics?
I don't think we necessarily, I can talk to Mr. Gallagher about that. I don't think that necessarily needs to shift, because that's a separate, distinct award.
Okay.
That's a good question. I think that might be it, because I did not include the policy. Obviously, I'd need to change the names, because they still have Dr. Eric Oxford in the handbook.
Great,
At some point, I need to change that.
thank you. Are there any? Okay,
So
great.
question, John, so
Yeah.
logistically, I think we do have to discuss the athletic fee, how that's gonna be handled. When's the deadline to get that done, so you can get it in the handbook and get it?
It's really up to school committee. So we won't send out the students, the parent sign off on the changes in policy until just before school starts, like the middle of August.
I think the greater sense of urgency, to answer your question, is that the athletic director wants to send out fall
Right.
registration and needs,
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how it related to this, but, so I'm not sure when we have that discussion, if it's tonight or next meeting or.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a few. So at policy, we had talked about, the policy subcommittee, just like I said to Mr. Fitzgerald, having policy live in policy, and then the handbooks live there, and not to copy and paste, so that if one gets changed, it's not, going out to the other one says. So the bullying policy it's an outdated version is in here, and then there's a link to it, and the link doesn't work, so I think that
Oh,
should
that's right,
come
'cause
out.
it changed. The website changed, yeah. I
Yeah.
can change that.
And then maybe just double check some other links, like the bullying prevention plan link doesn't go anywhere. The field trip policy is also referenced in here. So I would recommend not even putting, saying, oh, we have a field trip policy. If you have the statement at the end that you do have that says, hey, our district policy manual is, on the district website, that should cover us, because
Okay.
our policies will say this should be in the handbook. So I think if we
Great.
have that,
It's
we're
simple.
doing it,
Okay. And since this document now lives electronic, we don't print out student copies anymore. We can just hyperlink the district policy page.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so anything those are the 2 that stood out to me, but yeah, anything that is like a, copy and lift from the policies, just wipe it out and just,
Okay. We'll check all those references and make sure they either are deleted or go to the right place.
wonderful. Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to approve the handbook updates as discussed?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Haley, second by Jen. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion passes, 7-0.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a technology department update. We will welcome Keith Borgen and Amy Gregory.
The student singing.
While Amy's plugging in, I'll just give you a quick introduction. First of all, I want to thank you folks very much for making time. We know you have a busy agenda, and I did promise Laura we would keep it as short as possible. There'll be a lot of words coming out of my mouth very quickly. If they're too fast, just tell me to slow down. And also, we work very conversationally, so if you folks have questions as we go, we're happy to go ahead and tackle those. So whenever you feel like asking questions. So what we do is just about every year, we go around and do what we call sort of a world tour. And we go to each of the schools and kind of give a status of where technology is in the district. And school committee is the last stop on the world tour. So by way of introduction, my name is Keith Borgen. I'm the director of IT in the district. And mostly my job is to make sure the technology kind of stays working so that everyone else can kind of do their job. If I do my job really well, nobody should really know who I am. That's kind of the theory behind it.
I'm Amy Gregory. I'm the digital learning specialist. So I have one foot in the IT department and then one foot in the classroom. So I serve as the bridge for teachers for digital learning and for students.
So if any of you folks know business analyst, that's kind of Amy's role for me. I don't always speak academic, and she does a great job of kind of translating it for me. So this is a quick look at just some of the things we'll be going over tonight. It's basically 25, 26 sort of in review, along with a quick look at what we'll be tackling this summer. So data dashboard, just by way of background, a couple years ago, Amy and I were at a conference, and all of a sudden, just about every session was about data dashboards and how teachers and coaches can use them to help inform teaching and learning. By the time we were back, Amy had me convinced that we needed to move forward with this. We didn't have the expertise in-house, but we also didn't want to be tied to a vendor forever. So we found a vendor that helped us stand up a data dashboard internally with the idea that they would also train us in how to maintain this going forward. So last year we finished up with version 1, and we finished, what we're about to show you tonight will be version 2. And the idea is that we went out to different teams and asked what they needed, and that informed us. And a lot of what you see here was built by a gentleman named Jim Depew, who has really taken this and run with it.
What you can see, our first ask came from our math and literacy coaches as they have data meetings at the elementary schools. And so they were really looking to save time, pull the data out of the programs that's siloed instead of 5 separate logins and going to get that data and getting that one-stop shop view. And you can see, so this is a snapshot of a district view of an elementary, just the literacy scores. So currently we have 4 programs that we're bringing the data in, as well as our student information system. So that allows us to filter and sort, and we also have some drop downs over here. All of these pie charts are clickable, so if you want to break it down by, star reading enterprise scores that are partially meeting in trimester 1 and students on an IEP, and whether it's at a specific school, you can aggregate that data, which is great. And we didn't leave math out, and so this is the start of our math board, and we're working on 2 more integrations, but we have 3 sets of scores here. And you can see by those benchmarks there, we follow the MCAS of meeting, exceeding, partially meeting. We needed to do the work in the back end of aligning all of the other programs to match that so that these would align together. And so that was a lot of the work that started. And then the coaches asked for it, and also the MTSS team, which was the other ask, asked for a breakdown by student. So you can see here, I blurred out the student and information, but we've got our demographics up top. And depending on the grade the student is in, we've got up to 5 points of data that we can pull from at this time, as well as our benchmarks. And the exciting thing is that we have, for our STAR Reading Enterprise and math, we have 5 years now worth of data. So almost an entire elementary cycle, as that was one of the tools we picked up post-COVID. So we're in progress, we're making strides. Our roadmap for the future is to now break it down to elementary teachers to save them time and kind of see that one stop so that they can then, again, this isn't giving you, a full breakdown of every tool and every score, but it's sending you to the program so you can see the successes, you can see the red flags, and then say, now I'm going to jump into that program to get more information. And so that's been requested for teachers, and then we're going to move on to secondary folks.
So another initiative that we did this year is we actually launched a new website late last fall. The work actually began a little over a year ago, and what we did was we basically started building in parallel the new website while maintaining the old one. And in deciding what was important, we kind of asked for feedback on some of the pain points on the old site, and people were more than happy to give us that feedback. So mainly it's really hard to find the thing I need. The experience is different between schools. And the third thing is that the website was stale. Either the pictures were stale, we did have pictures of students who had graduated quite a while ago. And so those were the 3 things we really wanted to pay attention to when we were moving forward with the new website.
So what we focused on is we really have 5 websites, the district site at the 4 schools, and we wanted that common look and feel. So you can see it's very simple, and our menu bar is consistent throughout the 4 schools, a little different on the district site, so that if you are a parent at Winthrop and say the middle school, you're looking for academic information, you're going to find it under departments in both schools. You want to see a previous newsletter, that's going to be under families. Menus are going to be an icon halfway down. So we've really tried to maintain that. And the other big hurdle was that we had many departments, classroom teachers, outside groups, clubs, teams that created their own separate websites under different platforms for Ipswich Public Schools. And so we asked them, we met with them one at a time, bring them all back in and put it under this site so that it's all included. And we're down to just 1 or 2 left. So that it has that consistent look and feel. If you're a parent or somebody interested, you know it's part of the Ipswich Public Schools.
And so we basically went with an internal launch in October, and we sent it out to the faculty and staff of IPS and asked for their feedback, and everyone was really helpful, especially the secretaries and the administrative assistants, and making sure that we were ready. We launched November 24th, and we've been live for about 6 months. It's still far from perfect. There's plenty of things to fix on it, and we also realized there's still a real danger of things getting stale on the site. So to sort of address that, we're working with the different schools to sort of hand off maintaining the sites, because they have a really good idea of what their schools are doing, so hopefully they can keep it live. And then and we're working on that now, and we'll continue to work on it during the summer. And then Amy and I have a number of things that we kind of revisit every summer. We'll talk about that in a second, but the IT world is, we'll be revisiting the website too, just to make sure we kind of stay up to date, and also that there's a cohesive look and feel across all the different schools. Speaking of summer, so believe it or not, summer is one of the busiest times for IT, because during the year, it's a lot about keeping things running. My computer is down, I can't print, I'm having trouble projecting. We do a lot of these things if someone's having trouble logging in or doesn't understand an application. So it's hard to really do larger projects because we have to bring down the district to do them. We tend to do those projects to a large degree in the summer and to a lesser degree during the other vacation breaks. What you see are 2 technical wizards in the upper right-hand side. On the right is Bill Ford, on the left is Jim Evans, and they are fantastic. And this is them setting up for the upcoming year. And this is just the Chromebooks they're working with. So a quick look at what we do in the summer is in June, it's all about kind of wrapping up the year, both academically and fiscally. collecting devices back in and maybe seeing kind of what condition they're in, deciding whether or not they're going to go back out into the wild or we'll need to replace them or repair them. And then also, we talked about it earlier, but Amy and I go through tech reviews. We'll review the tech plan, which we have to do kind of on an annual basis just because of how fast things change. And the same thing with the AI guidelines, our incident response plan, website, and things like that. We begin those initiatives in June, and they continue throughout the summer. In July, it's all about turning the page. It's no longer 25, 26. It is now 26, 27. We take equipment out, put new equipment in. We complete our state reporting with the idea that we roll forward with the student information system. And when that is set to be ready for the new year, Amy and I can start implementing any new applications that we might be using. And then in August, the people are coming back before you know it. Amy's teaching them, basically training them on any of the new teaching tools we have. And then we're onboarding new staff, we're getting the devices ready, and then opening the doors for fall. Our major projects this summer that we're trying to squeeze in, the elementary phone upgrade. Their phones are a little bit older. We're trying to basically bring them up to the level of the phones that we have in the middle school, high school, and central office. We're also onboarding the I Love You Guys program. I think Brian may have talked to you or maybe mentioning it at some point. And we'll be transitioning the website support over to the schools and also wrapping up the cybersecurity initiative. Speaking of cybersecurity, 2 years ago, we applied for a cybersecurity grant and we received funding for a number of things that we really needed to do. It won't come as a surprise to anyone in the room that districts are targets now. And the goal is basically to send you an email that you'll click on a link and sign in. And that's all they need you to do. And so what we're doing is we've set up spam and phishing trainings. They call this phishing when they do this. And we've set up trainings for all the IPS staff. And then to see how the trainings are doing, we've also, and this hasn't made us super popular, but we've also launched phishing campaigns where we will send people simulated phishing attacks to see if they click on it. And if they do, they are enrolled in a class. I will say it's been, all of this has been successful. We're much better than we were. We've turned up the heat and we've sent out some really difficult phishing attacks, and our staff are doing better. There's always room for improvement, but we're way better than where we were. We also had an outside vendor come in and do a cybersecurity assessment to see how we're doing. At the same time they did that, they also did walkthroughs. They wanted to see whether or not they could, they call it social engineering, but talk their way into the server room and things like that. And then they give us recommendations and tell us where we can improve and what we can do. And so we accomplished that last year, and that informed what we call an incident response plan. That's what do you do if something does happen? And so we updated that with the information from the cybersecurity assessment. And then we've done 2 tabletops. Tabletop is when an outside expert comes in, sits down, and creates a scenario that is like a real world thing, and then puts you through your paces. What do you do when this happens? What do you do when that happens? And we just finished our last one in May. So that completes basically the cybersecurity grant. And then what we'll do is we'll revisit these documents on an annual basis. The last thing we want to talk about, and probably the most exciting, is the switch upgrade. We did come asking you folks for quite a bit of money to do a switch upgrade last year. We just want to let you know over the holiday break, we implemented it. What is a switch? Switches are basically what let all of our technical equipment, anything with a brain, talk to anything else. And we have about 100 of them in the district. And we replaced them all. Why did we do them all at once? If you have different layers of sophistication and they're all talking, they all talk at the stupidest level. So what you want to do is you want to get them all at the same level so we can leverage that sophistication. So the last reason we wanted to do it all at once is we could leverage our E-rate money because we got 50 cents on the dollar. So we were able to replace all of the switches. If you think of the switches as kind of our Interstate 95 for how our traffic moves, we basically ripped up all of Interstate 95 with all its potholes and then laid down a brand new road over winter break. And then when we came back, we were pretty much set for the students, and we really should be good for the next 5 years. So I just want to say thank you for trusting us with that money. And that's it. Does anyone have questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
For the website, when it has like all the different schools, you talk about the concern about it getting stale. Is that an opportunity for some high school kids to say, okay, the three of you guys you're in charge of updating Winthrop, discussing with the Winthrop principal?
Yeah.
Look, and, is that what you do?
There are opportunities there. Right now, we're not doing that, and what you're describing actually is pretty common. We might give them editor abilities, but we probably wouldn't allow students publishing abilities,
Right.
so it would be a tiered
To be
thing.
part of the process.
Yeah, right now, our goal is to train each of the schools in how to manage it, and then if the schools want to take that one extra step further, or they want to even turn it into a class, yeah, that's what a lot of districts are doing.
Questions? I very much appreciate the website updates. I know I was noticing that today as I was looking at handbooks. I'm like, oh, it's the same spot in all the schools. It's wonderful. So, thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. I have appreciated the website update many times throughout the year
Well,
as a
thank you.
parent. So
Oh, that's great to hear.
Wonderful.
Better process.
We learned an awful lot during that process.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. It was very interesting.
Yeah. All right, keep her on, not too far off. We are on to our FEFI's committee update, and we welcome Sandy Colby from the committee. If you don't mind coming up to the microphone so then folks at home can hear you.
I'm Alexander Sandy Colby. I am your FEFI rep for the school committee. And I'm happy to report about what we're doing by managing the Payne Trust and the Manning Trust. And our view is, key goal is to maintain the real, or enhance the real purchasing power of these funds. So in 2012, we were given $22,229,000. And today, allowing for inflation, that has to be $31,729,000. Inflation is insidious, as we all know. So the real purchasing power of those funds today has to be at least $31 million. What we've done is we've adopted an investment policy. We've hired an outside manager, Aureus Asset Management, out of Boston. We meet with them four times a year. The chief executives come out to see us, discuss investment performance. We've adopted with them a policy that favors about 70% in equities and 30% in fixed income, commodities, and other assets such as absolute return funds. The real issue is equities. Common stocks return more over time, we all know that, but they do it with a volatility that's very difficult. Therefore, you try to balance the equities. So with Aureus, over the last 12 years, our fund is now worth $47 million. So compared to the $31 million of inflation adjusted, the fund's worth $47 million. That means we have an extra excess of $15 million over the real purchasing power. Our policy is we'll never make a distribution that puts us below the adjusted real purchasing power. So we have $50 million to the good. The distribution policy is 3% of the rolling 3-year, 12-quarter asset value on March 31. So that sort of smooths things out. And 3% is an incredibly intelligent number. It's low. And everyone says, well, I want more money. But more money means the spread gets tighter against the real value. You don't build the excess. And the excess of $50 million sounds pretty good. But in my 54 years of money management, that's why I don't have spreadsheets and laptops, I've had 3 50% corrections in my 54-year career. And that's happens rarely. But we actually, at this point, could take a 50% market crash and just get down to the real value. So we would be able to make a distribution, anything short of a 50% market correction. I'm not predicting that at all. We've had 3 really good years here. So if I were to say the next 3 years, I think things won't be that great. I don't think they're going to be bad. But we have a big spread over what we're trying to accomplish, and the distributions would go down. Perhaps last year was $1.3 million. We sent you that number. Distributions might be 1.1, 1.2. That's just a guesstimate. But we have a lot of excess built in. And so, as Einstein was asked, what's mankind's greatest invention? Compound interest. That's what we're all doing here. We want to get as much money there running as possible. We also want to make distributions for you to enhancements. So anyway, we're there, we're working. We have a great team with RS Asset Management, and we're paying attention.
Yes,
Any questions?
indeed.
Mark tomorrow to ask. No, to ask some questions, and you hit on kind of the crux of the questions I've had since the beginning in the school committee. So 31 million to 47 million, right? You said is X.
We have $47 million of value. The adjusted original principal, $22 million, is now 31.
So about, let's just call it 15 million above.
Of excess, that's right.
And I understand the 50% correction. It almost sounds like your goal is to get to double what the inflation was to absorb that 50% correction. But my point is, when we start to look at the numbers crunch we're under right now, and the budgetary constraints we're under, is there some point where we need to consider 4%? You know, because at 15 million above inflation-adjusted base is great, but at the expense of what in the school?
Well, remember that these funds can only be used for enhancements. So Richard,
Listen,
they can't be used for the budget.
Understand that.
So a budget crunch doesn't affect, yeah.
We turned away $290,000 of enhancement because we didn't have enough FEPI's funding.
Yep.
I'd say it that way. We just didn't have the thing. And so why not 4%? I mean, and I understand you're not going to grow the base as much as you grew before, but why constrain it at 3% given that you have $15 million of excess?
That's what we have at this moment after 3 good years. It hasn't been a bad hit since 2009.
I understand that, but
market could be down 10, 15%, whatever.
It could be, but how'd you settle on 3%?
To be a number that most distribution policies for individuals say 4%.
Okay.
But that's because you have a given individual with a certain lifespan who's trying to maintain a spread, not go broke. But that does not protect you, the real value of the money.
Understood, but since 2012, you've grown that fund admirably. It's a huge success story to an excess of inflation-adjusted plus 15 million. And 4%, yes, it's drawing down on that, but 4% could be a relief valve for enhancement stuff that we're not currently able to get after. And so I'm asking, what would it take for you to just go back and have a open dialogue about 3 versus 4? You know, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right thing. And if we're 15 million, but we have a need for some of that, how do we get after that?
There's always a need. I agree. I understand what you're saying totally.
Yeah, okay.
The issue is, well, as I think in The Great Gatsby, someone said to an individual, how did you go bankrupt? Slowly and very quickly. That could be, if you go to 4%, we'll go back and run the numbers. I'll send you an email. What would the number look like?
Right.
So rather than to be protected against a 50% decline, what if I'm protected against a 20% decline?
Sure, absolutely. But
you don't want me to come back and tell you that I can't give you any money because I don't have the excess.
In 20 years, if we have an athletics program that's on its knees, that is on its knees, but we have $100 million in FEPIs, that's awesome. I'm asking for how do we make adjustments to long-standing policies based on fiscal realities? I'm just asking a question, and I understand your point. We don't also want to draw from. I get everything you're saying, and I appreciate what Great Gatsby said. You know, I do. But I don't want to be able to look our constituents in the eye and 20 years and go, "Hey, man, look, we've grown this thing 5 times." You know, because inflation is growing beyond what the distribution is, right?
but we're worried about the inflation-adjusted value.
Right.
And, you know, if you have $100 million, but it costs $110 million, do what we did 20 years ago for 20, you've lost ground.
I got that, but we're not. We're
No,
15
we
million
made great
over.
grounds because we have a very strict distribution policy.
Is it
I've
too
been in the
strict
business,
is the
we've all been in the
question
business like 30, well, most of 30, 40 years. It's a huge difference. And we have the luxury, and I know you say it's not a luxury, to, you know, we're trying to do this in perpetuity, the real value. Is, you all folks know that's a long time. Forever is a long time, and bad things happen. And we've had a remarkable streak here of good investment results. If the market was down 40%, you wouldn't be making the statement.
True.
And it does happen.
If the market went down 100%, I wouldn't be making this statement either. But I'm just asking that when do we revisit 3%? And if it's never, because it's worked in the past, I don't accept that as an answer.
Oh, could I jump in for 1 second?
No, just give me.
I think I have a little color that I can add to your question.
Okay.
So I was actually on the FEFIs, it was one of the originally appointed back in 2012. I was part of drafting that policy. I don't know how much history you've read into and the
I've read all of it. That's
situation
why I'm asking
and
these
the
questions,
political
yeah.
concerns in town about this money being wasted. And this policy was drafted after a very conservative endowment distribution policy.
Is it too conservative, though, Greg, is what I'm
I don't
asking?
believe it is, because if you kind of model this out in the future, if we have $100 million there, then we're looking at a $3 million annual distribution. So the distributions are going up in line with the growth of the asset.
But it's also maybe not keeping pace with inflation and our needs, right? Just because we're getting a distribution that's 3 million in 10, 20 years doesn't mean that it's not equivalent to what we're getting now. The point I'm just trying to make is, when do we, if you wrote it in 2012 and we're still executing it 14 years later, when do we as a group get to go, is it the right policy? That's the only question I'm asking.
Well, we don't get to, it's they determine it, we're just the
Yeah,
beneficiaries.
but who do they work for? They're not.
They work for us, but they're the ones that, there's that arm's length relationship there where they are honoring the original wishes of the trust administration.
But the 3% isn't what Payne said in 1641. Payne gave us this grant, and the 3% is something we came up with. And so if it's, we just can never, ever look at 3%, and it's just going to be it for the rest, okay, I want to see that written in policy somewhere. And just because we wrote it in 12 doesn't mean we can't change it. And I'm just, again, I'm not saying that we absolutely need to change it. When do we review it? And the reason why old FEFIs failed is because there was no oversight of the group that allowed to go over. And if we're the oversight people for FEFIs reports to us, shouldn't we engage in a conversation about whether we have it right or not? And I'm 100% a big fan of FEFIs. Don't get me wrong. I'm just asking, it's a 13, 14-year-old policy. When do we review it?
Yeah, I would argue that for a trust like this that needs to stay in place in perpetuity, the current model still makes sense. And I get where believe me, I'm as frustrated as you are that we don't have the funding to do the stuff we need to do, but I also I think it's a slippery slope to keep adjusting or even adjust to 4% and then run into a situation where, as he said, we do have a market correction. Because if we dip below that inflation-adjusted corpus, then there's no money.
What adjustment would it take if it happened next year to dip below? I mean, what kind of crash? That's, we keep talking about.
It would take a 50% crash.
Okay, 50%
Which
crash.
happens I've had 3 and 54 years, would put us back down to be flat with the inflation-adjusted number. We would not be able to we would not make a distribution.
Right. So we've had 3 and 50 years. We're actually already kind of at where we've anesthetized inoculated
I get your point.
to that.
Yeah.
And so I would argue that if I had a fund manager and said, hey, I'm not going to relook at anything that you have for 16 years and don't ask me about adjusting it, I would find a new fund manager. And I'm not saying that we should fire fund managers. Obviously, they're doing a great job. But to say that we shouldn't engage in dialogue about is it right, I think it's not the right.
Happy to do so. I mean, for example, we go back and read the numbers at a 4% level or a 5% level to see what it means, but it would mean a lot.
What's the harm in that?
No harm.
That's all.
Yeah,
Happy
no,
to
I
do
get
it.
it. Yeah, I just think I think there's a difference between a fund manager with the guys that they've hired, Aureus, to manage the money, and the trustees of this trust that are bound by the duty to make sure it stays in place in perpetuity. And I think, I'd be happy to see the numbers, I'd love to see it, but I think my instinct, having done this, is that increasing it even by that 1% is gonna make a huge impact on the potential volatility of those distributions.
Maybe huge, maybe minor, we won't know until we see the numbers. And so I'm just asking, maybe we ought to have a session where we take a look at the numbers and just see, because
Or maybe even some discretion on their end to say, maybe this has been another good year, maybe they go to 4, but they revert to 3, unless there's
Sure,
something.
I just think,
I don't wanna,
magic 8-ball distribution, I think we ought to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Please, and everybody out there in ICAM world, I am not criticizing FEFIs at all. I think it's a wonderful program, it makes Ipswich unique, and it helps us fund music and arts and sports, and it's awesome. I just wonder if we're too conservative, as evidenced by the growth over inflation adjustment, that we could actually fund more if we had a different percentage. That's all I'm asking.
I have one question. Do you have any mortgages on the books still?
There's one small one
One
left.
small one left? Yeah.
We're trying to get rid of it as quickly as possible. That's virtually gone.
That was an interesting twist when the settlement happened. There were 55 homeowners that couldn't afford the payout, so they mortgaged the purchase of their land through the FEFIs. So the FEFIs were collecting rents every month on the properties.
That's now the least of our problems.
Glad you hear you're down to 1.
Anyway, I'd be happy to supply numbers.
Thank you for
I could rerun that easily.
My marine intensity comes out, I don't mean it as accusatory at all,
Hey, I've been in this business 54 years. I've heard complaints. A lot.
But, you raised some good questions, but your meetings are public.
Yes.
Right, so, for anybody who has questions.
We're open meetings, yep.
Yep, and
Welcome to come.
Yeah, and I would say that next time, so getting at another posted, right? But since we're a school committee and FEFI's supposedly having advanced, like an email to us saying there's a meeting instead of the after summary, I only got the after summary of the meeting. I had to go back into the town to see.
so I guess respectfully, I think as citizens, we need to be mindful of the town
Okay, but when a
meetings.
subcommittee of us, which FEFI's kind of is, they're
No,
not.
no,
You're an independent
no.
organization that reports to who? Everybody? The town?
Say so.
I don't think that's the way
They're audited by the same auditors the school department is.
but I think when you read the FEFI's regulations, it's a school committee function to provide oversight.
It's committee, school committee, selectmen.
They're not listed anywhere in
Well, they're the appointing entities, but we're the beneficiaries of the trust. It was designed in a way that keeps the FEFIs totally separate from any interference from the school committee. Rightfully so, I think. So we're the beneficiaries, they're the trustees. They make the decisions, I suppose. That's why they're on 3-year terms. If we're not happy with our appointed FEFI, then we put someone else in place when their term's up.
All right. Any other questions for Sandy?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Nice to meet you for the first time.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Thank you so much for coming. If you stick around or not, because we could go to. I was going to see if we should go to Payne, but we'll just stick to the agenda. Okay.
Sorry? So I'm ready if we got it.
So I'll, just in the interest of time, looking at the clock, we have a lot of ground to cover yet this evening. So my superintendent's report has been in the folder for a couple of days. I'm sure you've all had a chance to peruse it. Just some of the highlights. On May 8th, we were fortunate to have the visit by the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. She outing the policy that we have here in Ipswich with the bell-to-bell cell phone ban. So she came in, reviewed, had a tour of the building, spent some time in a AP government class, talking with students. She saw how we had our system and policy set up. She was very impressed. And then she used Ipswich High School as a stepping off point for a grant that they were offering out of her office for schools to begin implementing bell-to-bell cell phone policies. So very proud of that and the work of the teachers. teachers, students, and staff and administration at the high school. We do have a small group that started working together to look at grade reconfiguration at the elementary level. Over the next year, we'll be exploring reconfiguration options and present a recommendation for the full school committee. We're going to be looking to expand that group to elementary educators. Right now, it's just been administrators and a school committee member to have those conversations. It was good to see town meeting went very well. All of our school-related articles passed. Talk about the subcommittee work that's been done. Every year, the jazz band here at the middle and high school, I should say, performs at the Shaolin Lu over in Rockport. It's a beautiful concert event venue, so I was able to attend that. They do an amazing job where we bring in some guest artists to work with our students and then turn around and perform with them as well. You heard the technology report this evening. I've worked with Keith and Amy in putting that report together. Memorial Day, I was able to have the privilege of driving all of our veterans to the various ceremonies here in town. And then Tom ended the day for me because I had another meeting that I had to get to, but I picked them up in the morning and took them to Winthrop in the middle and high school and got to hear some great speakers in the course of that. Thank you, Paul. Admin team meetings, we've been focusing on the end of the year planning, closing out our budget, preparing for next year's budget, hiring, et cetera. Our EDP director, Alicia Murray, and I met a week ago to talk about potential programming for the summer months. As you know, we started the teen drop-in center this past year. It's starting to gain momentum. We're going to be able to start charging a small fee for students to attend next school year. But in the meantime, we talked about potential activities over the summer, including movie nights and potentially a resource fair for parents. Senior activities. I attended the senior prom last Friday. I've always made it a point to chaperone the senior prom and be around on graduation day. Those have great import. Not that they seem to. They do have great import, and it's also a day of high stress for administrators. Rob and I continue to meet to discuss facilities issues. We've been talking most recently about expending any of the previously approved capital funds that we had that were left over, and he's made great use of those, and we've been aware of some things that have been in need of repair. He's also, already gearing up for what was just approved at the most recent town meeting. Personnel issues with the IEA. And then, since I wrote this before yesterday, last night was baccalaureate. This afternoon I had the opioid settlement funds meeting. This afternoon, the opioid settlement funds group, we were launching in the fall a website off the town website with a lot of resources for individuals and families, including a grant program where folks who are in need of help dealing with addiction can apply for grants to get services for themselves. That program is also helping to support our drop-in center run through the EDP program. So some of their funding is coming to us through that as well. Graduation is going to be held on Sunday morning at 10. We're leaning toward being able to hold it outside. Depending on the weather, we're going to make a decision tomorrow, just so that we can see. Last we checked, there was about a 12% chance of rain on Sunday morning. That was continuing through most of the day. So if it's that low, we will likely be outside. If it rains overnight on Saturday, because obviously we have to set everything up on Saturday during the day, we'll have to get there early and dry everything off before we can. Aiming for it outside. And finally, at the last school committee meeting, we were asked about the AEDs and what practices were put in place to ensure that they're not only in the designated locations, but were maintained properly. We do have AEDs at both Mile Lane and Jack Welch Stadium. They're checked weekly by the athletic director, and he has a sign-off that he keeps to ensure that they've, not been stolen and that they're continuing to be in working order. The field attendant also checks the one at the turf field on a daily basis when he's out there. We've instituted calendar reminders so that we can bring them in and put them out at the appropriate times of the seasons, so they don't stay out there all winter, for example, at either field. Fields aren't being used anymore for the winter season. The nurses maintain a spreadsheet of the battery life and the replacement schedule for the pads themselves. Action Ambulance takes care of providing all of the updated pads, et cetera, for us. So that's all in place.
Questions for Dr. Blake?
I have to say, it's very hard to focus with such beautiful music happening.
It is.
It's amazing. I'm getting goosebumps from what you're saying too, but mostly from the vocal.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
The Pops concert is on Monday night. They're having, I think, perhaps is their last rehearsal this evening. And I believe there's a live stream that'll be going out for it as well. Folks can't make it, but it's definitely worth seeing or listening to from home. They're amazing.
Or in a meeting.
Yeah. All right. Subcommittee working group and liaison reports. Budget met. What did we talk about?
Budget met, and we talked about the ongoing task force to look at budget-related issues to possible split configuration.
And some fees.
And how to,
Well, point being, we're meeting again because there's just a lot of work to do to, just in the situation we're in and to try to, think long-term versus year to year. Not that that hasn't been happening, but just for the school committee to be more part of those discussions. So,
part of the future look is to look at, is there, we talked about a healthcare opt-out.
Yep.
And a potential early retirement package in the future that might benefit our budget.
So more to come. All right. Communications has not met, but I wanted to see if the school committee would empower me as the chair to just throw together a nice and concise final newsletter that will just kind of recap this meeting, just to avoid adding more meetings. Great. I don't know if we need to vote it, but thank you. I guess in spirit, it sounds like nobody's opposed. Great. Okay. I think athletics has met, and then I don't know if anybody else has, so you go first.
Yeah, so athletics working group has met twice since our last meeting here. So we've gone over a few things. The end result of the second meeting is that we're adding kind of questionnaires, I'll call them retention questionnaires on the budget to both transferring eighth grade students as they leave or anybody else in the high school who would transfer out to another school, so that we can track potential reasons why they might be leaving. There is some talk about potential interest in football, a number of players, and just looking at what is going to happen for the football team going forward. And then the large topic of conversation is athletic fee structure, and the reason why you saw a change in the handbook, but maybe we won't change, is because we still need to talk. There might be some leftover FEFI money. FEFI is the theme tonight, and I'm sorry to bring that up right now. But,
Coming again in 2 more agendas.
yeah.
You think we should put this on the budget? Because I definitely think we need to talk a little bit about, put it on the budget
Meeting.
subcommittee agenda.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good idea, so that we
That's
can,
next week.
yeah. So, yeah, the budget subcommittee is meeting again next week, I think on the 11th. And maybe we can put the athletic fee structure on there.
Okay.
Okay. I think the feeling is, we don't really want to increase fees, but we have a problem with the athletic revolving account and the way we structured paying for coaches. So we need to look at that and to see if there's any other room to add to the athletic budget.
I wanted to run some ideas by Tom and have him tell me I'm crazy for what I'm thinking, but it's probably better next Thursday than it is tonight. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Have any other working groups or liaison positions met?
No, but mutual concerns is next Tuesday,
Oh, okay. Got
Four.
another one. Okay.
middle school, high school room.
Wonderful. All right. I'm hearing no others. Okay. So we're going to skip the high school student rep report. But I do want to point out that we do have a new student rep who's going to be Katie Moscow. She is part of the wonderful music making that we're hearing right now. She said if she has a minute, she'll pop in to say hello. We look forward to having her. So next up is the finance report.
Good evening. In your packets, excuse me, in your folders, the three regular reports. Calling your attention to the year-to-date budget, the budget report. Just a couple of highlights there, and certainly any questions are more than welcome. At this point in the year, we have expended 96, just a little over 96% of the budget. We have 2 remaining pay periods, which will consume a good chunk of the remaining balances there, and we continue to perform to expectation. What will occur in between now and the close of the year is we will bring in all of the offsets from outside sources between grants and revolving funds and so forth, and will afford us to close the year as the budget plan required. So we're in actually a very good stead there. If I could specifically just call your attention to page 21, just as a point of note. On page 21, under I guess the second to last, a line item, you see a $750,000 transaction. That represents town meeting's approval to remove from, or to transfer from the closing down of the fiscal '26 budget, take $750,000 out of our budget and move it over to the Education Stabilization Fund. When I talk in one moment about the revolving fund reports, you'll see the $750,000 is now there. So we have expended 96% of the budget, including the transfer of the $750,000. So we are performing well and on par as the budget year has progressed. Now, so looking at the revolving fund spreadsheet, revolving fund, the end of May balances, I guess might as well, while I'm on that topic, the second to last item under row T29, School Stabilization Fund, if you see the end of April balance, and then the end of May balance is exactly $750,000 higher. That represents the transfer from closing down the operating budget and to the transfer into special ed, transfer into the school stabilization. Next thing I just want to point out, and I think just really to echo some of the comments that Jen made earlier in the working group around high school athletics. The revolving fund balance is as unfortunately predicted. It is dropping, and that's not news to us. It is functioning and performing as it needs to, but we are not going to be carrying the type of end-of-year balance that we have in the last couple of years. If you go all the way to the beginning of the blue, which is this fiscal year balance as of end of August 30, 25, our revolving funds, you may recall, we closed that year on August 30, not on June 30, to allow us that time to transition. But be that as it may, we closed fiscal '25 with just over a $38,000 balance in athletics, and we haven't even closed fiscal '26 yet. We're still a month away, but right now the athletic balance is just over $6,000. So we have been expending, as Mr. Gallagher has warned us and provided us with detail throughout the year, and I think we've shared here during the budget process about how tight the athletic revolving fund is. So it needs to remain on our radar screens. The rest of the revolving funds are performing and doing well. You will, by the time that we close, or the next time you see this report, you will see some dropped balances because the places that we are using to offset end-of-year expenses will be taken from these funds to offset the budget. Not the least of which, and this will be my last comment, at least my last prepared comment, in the second section, second line, school choice. We see a $1.2 million balance, which is good because we have not really spent much school choice money by budget standard and by school committee policy or directive for fiscal '26 yet. And when I say yet, that the only authorized expenditure is to offset the end-of-year costs related to health insurance. That comes off at the end of year when we do. So we'll be taking the budget need, which was the allowances, $495,000, will come off that. So sort of you may recall back in January some of the conversations we're having, and even at a finance committee meeting, I was sort of waxing on thinking, doing math out loud, that we would be closing the year in school choice with around $700,000. Which we will, because we'll be taking just south of $500,000 out of the fund now. But if we look at the number now, it is higher than we started the year with, which is a good thing. We've had money coming in through the school choice students that we do have, and we have been expending very little year to date. But that number is going to go down by $500,000 the next time you see this report.
That FEFI's balance, is that money that from approved grants that just haven't been spent yet? Or is
It's a combination of things. That's a great question. How the town treasurer treats the FEFI's balance is the same way that he treats all state or federal grants. Mm-hmm. So they book it as a revenue, and they allow us to spend against a town expenditure that effectively they keep in an interest-bearing account throughout the year. And they take out what we need to pay the bills throughout the year. So we are allowed to expend, up to the appropriation or up to the allocation as an appropriation, then the town treasurer will pay all the bills at the end of the year. But keeping, just like you would for a state or federal grant.
Okay.
So that's why that balance has remained the
Stayed
same
the same,
throughout
yep.
the year.
All right.
Hi.
Hi, sorry. I'm Katie Moscow, and I'm the new student representative, and I just wanted to introduce myself.
Awesome.
Nice
Hey, good to have you.
Yeah, I'm
Welcome
excited.
aboard.
I know. So you're part of the music out there?
Yeah, I'm
So
in the band part.
what do you do?
Music do you play?
I play the clarinet.
Awesome.
Excellent. It sounds great out there.
Yeah, it does.
We were talking about, it's hard to focus in here. But glad to have you aboard. It's going to be wonderful.
What year are you in?
I'll be a senior next year.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for popping over. It sounds like it's been a long night, but we will keep you posted when we're meeting again, and we'll touch base. Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.
Look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Back to finance.
And the last report, the last monthly report in your folder is the monthly report of expenditures. You see all of the warrants, both the four payroll warrants we've had in the month of May, and all of the regular or non-payroll related matters. So in the month of May, we've expended between payroll and contracted services and all other non-salary expenses, $3,845,224.
Right, any other questions for Tom? Okay, thank you. All right, Paul is up for our Payne grant approval.
All right, so I think I will be able to get us back on schedule a little bit. So, you just go to page 2, the bottom line up front. We were allocated $450,000 this year for Payne grants. The initial applications came in at $669,498. And through Peter's remarkable job in that committee, talking to each individual grant holder, he was able to get their distribution or disbursement down to the amount that we were. So when you look at the amount that that is going to be dispersed, pending our approval, and the amount that the grant applicants requested, it is exactly at $450,000. Payne Grant Committee voted in bulk on all 7 grant proposals, 9-0 with 1 abstention. And I'm unclear why the abstention. Just not enough information. Not enough
Yeah, I
time,
don't want to
think.
speak for the person who abstained. I was a member of the committee, and if they were inclined to explain that vote, I think they.
So if you look at the Payne Committee members, Tom and I were non-voting members that participated in the So,
Actually, you and I are non-voting members.
oh, I'm sorry, I had Tom for some reason.
I'm happy not to vote if you like. I'm happy to.
And as we talked about ad nauseum just earlier, William Payne bequeathed land, and which has become the Feffy's money, and mission statement. And the funds are not to be used for foundational budget stuff, but such as core academic programs, routine things, but it's for enhancement. So when they went through the grant review process, all the members were trained, the applications were submitted, 7 grants were received totaling $669,498. There was a rubric that was published, and I just briefly go through it on the next slide. I think the important thing to note here is that when Peter talked to the grant applicants, and you see the reduction the grant, it's the first year in a while where we've been over. Like, the amount that requested exceeded the amount allocated. So there was not fluff, but a lot of desirements versus requirements in the grant application. And when he went back to the grant owners and said, hey, can you really take a look at this was able to work with them to compromise to get to the amount that was. And so that is remarkable in and of itself, that in a compressed cycle, he took the time to go and talk to each individual grant applicant to get their kind of sense of what they absolutely needed. So if you just go to the paying grant summary, you can see the 7 grants or applications: college boot camp, the London trip for the high school, the Grand Teton National Park Service, which was briefed to us just a few weeks ago, Kinderswim, athletics, to revamp the training space and bring a trainer on board, place-based learning, field trips, and then the PD. See how the initial grant monies stacked up to $669,498, and then after the collaboration, you can see where the reductions were. The next slide talks about specifically where did the reductions come from. So on the London trip, in summary, they were going to do a universal offset of cost. They were able to reduce that offset but keep 27, I think it was, or 37 half-price trips and 3 fully funded trips. So within the spirit of helping people out but not doing a universal kind of buy down on price. The Grand Teton trip, again, it was removed because they didn't need the amount of financial assistance. There was some conversation about that is a universal buy down of cost, but it's small enough that it passed. Kinderswim, $405 was removed just because they realized that the principals were getting $50 stipends and they didn't need those, and there's always a few students, families that don't get involved. So $50,000 was removed. There was a van initially in the request that got dropped, so that dropped that request down. Place-based learning was just reduced kind of in scope and scale. And was from that. So the subsidizing of trips, there might be a $20 fee. And then you can see that from the professional development of teachers, so in total, through collaboration and engagement. And then if you want more detail on all the application, but like specifics, the next 7 slides detail specifically what each grant is, but I think one question that came up, and it's a science project, so there were a couple things. One, the committee felt like their timeline was pretty rushed. Like they didn't have enough time between first kind of briefing of presentations and voting as a committee to really make any kind of substantive adjustments if they wanted to. So the request is that we start their cycle a little bit early. They understood the policy was in shift and flux, and so, but I think that was the number one concern. The one question that we stumbled on near the end, Todd put it, was how do we make it equitable across music, arts, and athletics? And the only way that we were able to do it, and luckily Tom was there to be able to provide some context on where is the money being spent for music, where's the money being spent in total for arts, and then where is it being spent for athletics? Because I think the sense was, as we started to look at it, in this Payne grant or FE's distribution, 70% to 80% is on music and arts. And really only 10% of the money seems to be going to. If it's for enhancement in kind of the total architecture, I'm not sure that distribution of FE's makes sense. But without the context of where in the base budget we're expending money, so how do those 3 broad items stack up equitably? And I think that next year going into it, we probably need more data on how to handle that information. And I don't know if I've captured everything.
No, I think you have. You know, I think the work that Peter did was exceptional and deserves commendation for how he went back to the applicants more than once to try to make sure that every program was getting funding that it needed to move forward and to do his best to have some sense of equity across the program. And I think he really did do a good job of getting everyone to a place where that could take place, and then getting the folks on the committee to understand that and agree to the budget that he ultimately provided, which is why the vote looks the way it does. But I think, yeah, the sense that the equity across those departments is off is correct. I think maybe encouraging folks in the school system to apply and to look at where needs lie sooner in the year and actually submit grants is probably necessary and something that we could think about next year as we move through this process. But it's a concern that was valid and I think is worth addressing and looking at.
Two other things I think that important to highlight, well, three. One, when the rubric scoring came out, there wasn't one that kind of just drifted way below. And the conversation was, do we cut the low one or do we try to fund all of them? And so the decision was made, we try to fund all of them. Like, they were all worthy of funding. And to Andrew's point, writing the grant is a skill in and of itself. And so when you're grading against the rubric, some probably could have used a little more time and reflection before doing it.
Time and assistance, grant writing is a bit of an art. I'm not so sure the rubric accurately reflects the asks that are there.
Yeah.
You could look at the scoring and see that there was pretty wide variation between the people who were on the committee and how they scored things and then what they ultimately said and advocated for. That's probably something that should be revisited as well.
Yeah, the rubrics, I think, haven't been around for a while. The final thing, I think, and it goes back to, more grants being proposed means more asks of the FEFI's distribution, which goes back to giving some context of why I was asking what I was asking. Because some programs have never asked before, and now they realize, oh, there's something, I am eligible now. And I think athletics is one, because they weren't in the policy before, so I think the effort just to put their name, and I mentioned that a couple times, just to put athletics in the policy as a reminder that they qualify too. But I think we've let some programs kind of languish because they didn't, so it might need some catch-up. And so whether it's 3 or 4%, I don't know, but I don't think we're going to go back to a point in time where we turn back pain grant money. I think we're at a point now where we're going to have more, and I'm not sure it will always be as collaborative. I think there's going to come a point where we can't fund something important at the expense of
something else.
Right. So.
Great.
Thank you. All right, I have some thoughts on some things you said. I'm going to save some of them for our retreat planning. But I guess for this item, we just need to officially approve or not the recommendations from the paying grant committee. So does anybody have any questions or further discussion for what Paul's presented?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the point you were making about the percentage breakdown of distribution. You were trying to say that it would be helpful to see balance between what we allocated to enhancement. Like, is that what you meant in terms of balancing what's here?
I can give you specifically in the context of that question. So at the athletics fund was a focus of the group because it was really the first time they'd seen it. So the question was, well, how much is this enhancement and how much does the allocated budget cover this? And I said, well, even your coaches are being paid through, the families are paying for coaches, except for some of the athletics department isn't, much like some of the music department isn't. And so they wanted to understand kind of in the totality of how the school is operating, where are the gaps where the enhancement could be additive, or where are we spending just a ton of money and they don't necessarily need FEFIs to enhance. That was the context of, without a bigger picture on how the school is spending across arts, music, and athletics, figuring out, let's say it was an either or, London versus athletics. Well, luckily it didn't come down to it, but if it had to, who's already getting a lion's share of kind of money into their program, and then which one is actually enhancing? That was the discussion that happened.
So it
That,
was-
that wasn't the
yeah.
specifics, but
No, but you're spot on. I think it had to do with the question being asked around, to your point, what's being covered, what's being asked for between the different the different areas that you identified, athletics, music and arts. But there's a line there somewhere. Is it just within the paying grant program, right? Or is it also the funding that we've now taken off the top and put as a budgetary offset? Because to some people's question on the committee, we took $525,000 of paying grant money, or FEFI's money, and offset the operating budget by it. And all of that money that we offset it with went toward enhancement and enrichment.
but to their point, and when Tom presented, principally it went to music,
Correct.
arts.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
go
sorry,
there,
yeah.
Because the bulk, well, the monies were put toward that because we clearly offer far and above in our music program in particular, an arts program, above what the state mandates in terms of programming, right? What you heard tonight, that's not mandated.
Right.
None of that is mandated. We have to have a general music program, maybe some others at the high school level, but certainly not at the middle and elementary levels. So that was part of the questioning of at least one of the members of the committee, like where is the money going? Are we spending too much on the arts versus the athletics? And that question can be asked either in the budget, right? Because yes, there's a disparity historically. It can be asked in the context of the FEFI's and paying grant program, and it can be asked in the combination of the two.
But that's where the group wanted, the combination of the two, and not to beat this dead horse, and that's why I was asking about the FEFI's money, right? Because it's great that we've grown 15 million. And I am 100% behind that's happening out there. But how do we get athletics at the same level? Because it also is optional for the school. We don't have to have varsity programs. So how do we get that as a crown jewel as much as the orchestra is without sacrificing that? And that's why I was asking about FEFI's. The only way to do that is to have more of that. And and it's a success story, but if we're growing 15 million above, can we carve out a little bit to reset and rebalance and then get it back up on plane together without harming that? And that's what I'm struggling with.
So,
Understood. And 3 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer than that, there were conversations afoot because we had, this building is 27 years old now, and we had a conversation about, we had a consultant come in from a paying grant and look at all of our science and math labs in the building. And there was discussions about, 3 tiers. One tier was just replacing lab equipment and things like that. Tier 2 was doing more extensive work in some of the labs. And Tier 3 was putting a second story on that building out there to do marine science and marine biology things, and giving more space to, frankly, the things that we have available around us. And that would have been like a $5 million project, and
Yeah.
that was not a possibility at that time.
But next year, we're not going to have the London trip.
Right.
And so as we continue to kind of rebalance, re-level, we have about 100K and athletics revolving fund, does it plug in there? I think that, one, revisit the distribution, and if it's 3, it's 3, but I definitely think we need to take a holistic look without harming everything that's happening literally across the hall. For those on ICAM, I'm pointing to the center, but
I would also say, I think I think we need to have our athletic department advocate, more for what they want.
Well, this is the first year we put them in policy, so I think it opened their eyes, and there was some conversation about that proposal could have been a little bit
And I
stronger.
think, to be fair, athletics has relied on IEF for a number of years for a pretty considerable annual distribution, but that's not available anymore. So I think we need to have more advocacy from them.
Yeah,
let us
now,
know
and
what they
as Paul said, now that they're in the policy, encouraging them to be more,
And the athletics working group will help emphasize
Yeah.
that moving through the cycle.
encouraging them to be more forceful in
Yeah.
their ask and in the grant that's put forward, I think will help to start to move things forward.
I think this conversation tonight is the end result of a bigger conversation of how we look at the budget globally for enrichment and enhancement. And Paul, you came in at a different time of the year. And we made decisions about the budget differently this year, but I think going forward, right, we won't have an England trip, but we also now, I think, are talking about our budget in a different way. And I think that's a good thing.
And it would also be great, because the England trip, I was mulling over during the presentation, instead of a one-time $100,000 ask, if they could have a series of smaller asks every year up into the fourth year, where they're banking it somewhere, like
The field house.
Effie's master fund,
Field
where
house.
they can draw from,
Yeah.
that would decompress the 4-year, oh my God, here's a
Big ask.
big ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and as someone who's
that's a
paying for the
great
England
idea.
trip, it's a big ask of
For the
theirs.
little ask.
absolutely, yeah.
One trip, instead of one big asking every year.
But I don't know the mechanisms to hold that.
I like that. That would definitely help balance the asks.
Yeah. This, Tom?
Yeah, you would just need the administrators to write the grant.
Good job, Tom.
Oh, that's a great idea.
My pencil,
Oh,
ready to go?
I want to add one thing about, I think it's, so I was we just looked at the FES policy, not this year, like the 2 years before that, and did a ton of work to it. We looked at the rubric. And it's interesting, after having done that work, to hear that this committee, it's great, but you looked at the grants that came in and looked at, well, how many are we approving from this bucket, this bucket, this bucket? And the rubric was never written in that way. I know in years past, there's been questions about, well, why is this elementary school writing a ton of grants and not this one? So I think the question about equity has been asked in a different way, but I think this is where I was gonna speak later, but I'll just throw it in there now. I think if we wanna bring up just, reinvigorate the whole FES policy and everything, that can come from the school committee. We can put that in the rubric or the rating system, but how do we, if that's important to us, how do we want to see equity between schools, between programs? We could put that in there, so it drives that committee.
Yeah, the question I struggle,
seamlessly.
I'm sorry. It was a comment that was made that I've been chewing on for a while. Do we fund deep or do we fund wide? And I can't remember who said that, but that.
Alexis, yeah.
Alexis kind of, that's, I think, the fundamental thing about FES. I told her I view it, we should fund wide, but I think there's also a thought that you fund deep, and that's truly enhancing, lasting enhancement. And I don't know how you would put that in a rubric, but I think the discussion about equity and distribution was a healthy discussion. It really helped folks be comfortable with reductions, instead of just cutting. Because I think as you reduce, you see where folks are losing things. I actually was really kind of proud of the group for trying to make sure that it was equitable in the way it ended up, so.
I think one question that I had and sort of struggled with, I should have asked at the meeting itself, Peter was present, is how these grants are advertised to potential applicants, encouraging teachers, professional staff, whomever, to think about what enhancements they might need that would benefit the students in any given school or the entire district, and how that might affect the applications that come across our desk. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure anyone here knows fully the answer to that. But I think really getting people to think about what the needs are and what would be a nice ask what would really benefit students and enhance students' experience as they go through the Ipswich school system, encouraging that thought and getting some more creative applications in.
One of the historical problems, now, just in my 9 years, the grant distribution has doubled. Right? So one of the issues that we see coming down the pike, and it came to fruition, was that teachers would write these wonderful grants for things for their classroom. But what happens when the program works, whatever the enhancement was, where is the continuing funding for that? So, for example, years ago, we had developed, principal had wrote a grant to start a world language program in the elementary school. We've done this with a number of positions, but this is an example. We ran the program for a couple of years through the grant. I think the first 2 years were through the grant, moved it into the budget. Then we started having budget issues and staffing concerns and being able to fill the position. Watch that program fizzle out and then go away 2 years ago.
One of the
individual classroom things, also, we had a middle school grant years ago where the virtual goggles were just coming out, and we bought classroom sets for them, but then found that the upkeep and the technology changed so fast that they were outdated and useless within 2 years.
Someone made a comment the other night that some of the programs that we were looking at were repeats. The swim program, I think, was one. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing if it is truly an enhancement, and then you have years of reporting on it. And if it is truly an enhancement and an extra beyond what the state requires and what we can fit in the budget, then maybe that is something that should be considered and should be a permanent. They're forced to reapply every year, but now you have data from every year that the program has taken place, and it becomes a worthy applicant.
Yeah, and that the dance instructor is going to be an issue like that, right? I mean, we're on the second year. What do we do next year?
Oh, here they come with their instrument.
Put them away now. Looks like.
Anyway, Paul tried to get us back on track, and now Paul and I got us off track.
No, this is good. This is.
I'm not helping either.
This is going to be a good segue.
More discussion.
Yeah. We took a turn, and I can't remember if we had a motion.
We did not. Move to support the FY27 paint grants as presented.
Okay. Moved by Gray, second by Paul. Further discussion? Okay, great. All in favor? Okay,
I will abstain.
opposed? Okay, 6-0. Thank you.
No, you weren't a voting member.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks to all the grant writers and that team. Actually, I have a quick question. The feedback form, is that going to be a thing? Oh, good. Okay. We can talk about that maybe, you and I, after. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Jen, if you could give us a recap on the TWIG.
Yeah, so TWIG, real quickly, but a few similar themes. There's 3 different items in your folder regarding TWIG. The first one I'll ask you to look at is 13B scores. If you bring that up, you should have purple across the top, and you'll see the black check mark box for the grants that were approved. If the box is empty, it wasn't approved. Scroll down to the bottom. The total request, $143,605, and the total allocation for TWIG is $175, but there's 2 rounds of TWIG a year, so we have a fall allocation to consider. The approved total, $77,258, so, and you see the remaining funds. So the next folder I want you to open, or item I want you to open, is 13B TWIG approval. Yeah, so this is Kathy Morris, the high school art teacher who chairs this committee, puts this together just to give a little reasoning behind what was approved and what was denied. So that's just for your information. And it's broken down per school. And then the last thing I'd ask that you open is 13B, and it should say meeting notes. Yeah, Twig Grant Committee meeting notes. So this year, this is my second full year on Twig Grant Committee, and there were a lot of concerns and a little bit of frustration with the rubric and kind of unanswered questions. So I took some notes and I put them down here. But I will say, in general, if you look at the grants that were applied for, there was, it was just kind of a flat. Just kind of flat, meaning there were a lot of furniture requests, which have come up before, things that don't feel innovative. And that was no fault of the grant applicants, but a lot of redundancy and things that we didn't feel were innovative and meet the rubric. I attached the rubric to the bottom of this, and we don't have to, get into too much detail here, but I'm going to just say that a few years ago, I remember when Kate Elliott was on this board, she initiated some communication to each school about what funding is available and what resources are for funding. You might remember this. So that, and what was suggested at this particular grant meeting, because John Mitchell is our administrator on this committee, is that at a staff meeting, it can be explained, what is innovation? When do you apply for a Twig grant, a Payne grant, a grant through IEF, like a Carolyn Davis Fund grant, a Sheila McAdams Fund grant, and what other resources are available to apply for? Because the furniture grant is getting kind of old. It came down to, we did approve, I think it was first grade flexible seating at Doyon, and we did that because a few years ago, first grade at Winthrop wrote a similar grant and got their furniture, and we didn't want to deny, equity at each school, and it was a need, but what exactly is innovation? So we thought there are some questions here about, well, how many years can we submit the same grant? It's not stated in the grant application or the scoring rubric about repetition. The committee has repetitively received grants for flexible furniture. Is this innovative? What other budget can this come from to allow for more innovation in Twig? And then can a section of the grant application be added for repeat grants that explains how the grant was used and how it might change in the current year? So if it's a repetitive grant year to year, what might be changing? So they asked for kind of a flow chart. They thought it would be helpful. I did make the suggestion of what was done in the past was each school, whether it's a school committee member, Dr. Blake, we can explain the different resources. They asked for a flow chart, and thought that would be helpful in understanding what funding is available. Yeah. But we went around on the website and couldn't find it. But, and so we don't have to, make this decision now, but I think next year as the year unfolds, and Mr. Mitchell said that at a staff meeting would be the most appropriate time for him to deliver information about that, but just to make sure that they feel like they know where all the resources are.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen about the Twigs?
I guess my only, not so much a question, but a reaction in terms of the furniture example is, obviously, this is a challenge in terms of something that can be supported by the budget. How else do they get those? I understand the point
Right.
you're making.
Yeah.
That it's not new, but I feel like it's somewhat comparable to the swimming program, where we're saying, well, if this is something that is effective and helpful and is supporting like a next group of kids, or, I mean, I think the argument can be made. But I understand why it's being asked. I just think the challenge for the teachers is obviously they need these things. And if
Right.
we pay for them otherwise, they are trying to think creatively about how to solve for the problems that they have. So it may not be innovative to the group, but it's their
Right.
way of being creatively solving for everything that they need help with. And in touring the buildings, those things make a difference to the spaces. So,
Right.
again, I'm not minimizing why it's being raised, but just the flip side of then what?
That could be like a capital expense sort of thing too, right? Add it in.
Yeah, but that's not for,
Yeah,
because
Oh, we got
it's funny,
boilers that we
we're
need.
looking at- It's not funny, actually. We're looking at all of these different things that we want to do. We have $1 million FEFI's distribution, $1,000,001 this past year. We have, an ever-tightening budget and concern about that moving forward. Other funding sources are there. IEF is limited in what they're able to provide. The capital plan, I think it's in the tea leaves that the capital plan and the capital funding that's been historically available is no longer available either. And we've got literally millions of dollars in asks on the capital plan between the town and school, and there's nowhere near enough funding to cover that. So to say, oh yeah, we can put furniture in the capital plan, well, I can tell you, as sure as we're sitting here, that's going to get pushed way down because there's a lot of other things that are more urgent that are in the
Yeah, I
capital
don't know, you
plan.
think bang for your buck, I mean, $7,500 of a capital plan to make a significant improvement in the way kids are learning, it's not, I mean, to me, that's a rounding error, but we can talk about that during budget, I guess.
I mean, just putting a marker.
No, understood, yeah. There's a,
So if there's budget dust, you can.
But that was the struggle for the committee this year because we denied 3 furniture grants. And, I don't mean to talk about Mr. Mitchell because he's not here, but he made the good point. He said, well, how would you do that differently? Where would it come out of your budget? And he said, well, I'd try to put it in my budget, and I'd come to the school committee and say, this is what we need, because we have teachers asking for furniture. So, yeah, they have needs, but I think, it goes up and down as far as, their knowledge of, and maybe just a reminder of what grants are available.
Well, and that's a really good example too of what has been said a few times around because before it comes to us, it goes, you guys have your whole process first, right? So what do they originally ask for? And then what gets cut, that in-between thing. And so I think, furniture has probably been on there, right? And so, yeah, we don't need to belabor the
Well, it's a good segue if we're talking about elementary furniture. Perhaps a new elementary building will include some of that.
Well, I assume the chairs could come with us to the new building. No investment in the future.
I think there's a furniture piece in the MSBA.
So,
Yeah.
this was put on the agenda. The school building committee has had a couple of meetings, at least one meeting since we got invited into the feasibility phase. We presented a document and a timeline at the last school building committee meeting that then became a public document. So I think the next day, or even that night, Tom sent it out to the full school committee, so you already have it in your possession. I wanted Tom to just review it before MSBA get signed off on for the feasibility study itself, so.
Thank you. I did, to Dr. Blake's point, I did email that to the committee, I guess it was May 15th, but it's also in your folder tonight, just so it's all in one place. You don't have to cruise through your emails to find it. In since the MSBA vote, I was asked to work up a timeline that now has a little bit more teeth to it. We were, vastly speculating in the past, and so it's just something to have some teeth and some plan. So the document that you have really speaks to what the timeline that we're on if we keep pace with MSBA's expectations. MSBA creates a window, if you will. Their expectation is that the window has a far point, meaning it shouldn't take any longer than this. And if they deem that the community is taking too much time, then they could have a serious conversation with us about, are you guys actually ready? And if you're not, we'll put you to the back of the line, and we're going to deal with a community that can be more ready. So they're less interested in how quickly we can get it done, but they sort of have a cap that it shouldn't take longer than. So each of the phases that we're looking at, if you have the handout or the PDF, the second phase of that is, or the second page of that is really a sort of a cover slide that speaks to the 3 phases and with 8 modules across 3 phases. I appreciate under time, I'm not going to drag this out. But this is what was presented to the school building committee back in the middle of May. So phase 1 we've already been through. That's the preparation piece. You file the SOI, which was received and accepted, and we successfully made our way through module 1, the eligibility period, which was effectively July of 2025 through the end of March 26. Then we went to the MSBA board meeting in April, and that's where we are today, inviting us in effectively to phase 2. Phase 2 is the feasibility and local funding phases, which has 4 modules to that. We are right now in module 1, which the MSBA sort of caps. You see there in parentheses a maximum of 150 days. They set sort of the beginning of that by placing us into what Dr. Blake was referring to. The first part of module 1 is the selection of the project team led by an OPM, owner's project manager. That's what we're in the mix on right now. We need to produce a sort of a procurement document, a really bid specs. We have to go out to the marketplace. We need to put our bid out, and then have consultants, architects, engineers bid on the work and bid on the job.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you say "we," is "we" the "we," or is "we" the school board or the school?
That's a great question. So I guess through this process, I wear a couple different hats. So the "we" that's charged with this is the school building committee.
Okay.
And in this space, the school business administrator, who has to have licenses for procurement and all that. So I kind of, in this space, work for the school building committee, but ultimately, obviously, work for you folks as well.
No, I was just trying to figure out, there's email exchanges about who's responsible for what, and I'm just curious.
Well, that's a great, because at the end of the day, the school building committee is responsible for this project.
And communicating to
whom?
Like MSB or MBS, right?
Yeah, the conduit of information between the town of Ipswich and the MSBA is the town manager and the school superintendent.
We're on track, we're on schedule,
Oh,
they're
yes.
not waiting for any data from us, I mean.
Oh, no. They wouldn't have approved us at the board meeting if we were behind in any way. We have kept pace and on track to get to this space. Where we are now is the owner's project manager bid, the bid proposal, which isn't out in the street yet, before it goes out to the street, has to be approved by MSBA. So there's lots of steps that the MSBA doesn't walk away from, obviously for their own expectation of procedures, as well as to make sure that any community is compliant with the Inspector General's rules around procurement. So before we can actually go and put the bid package out, the MSBA has what they call an OPM selection panel. The selection panel will first receive our draft document and give it the once-over and say, change this, or move that, or don't do this, or whatever, and whatever they tell us. That is due to MSBA by July 16. And if we are on time for July 16, we will be at either the October or November approval meeting by MSBA. They have 3 meetings in the fall and 3 meetings in the spring. There's a September meeting, October meeting, and November meeting of this OPM selection panel. So once we are approved to have the bid document go out to the street, which we would hopefully have soon after July 16th. They obviously, once we turn it in, they give it back to us with whatever guidance or direction. At that point, they will give us the green light. We will then put it out there. The expectation is that we would have it turned around within the state timeline, which would be between, say it goes out, I'm making this up now, say they give us approval on July 20th. That may be aggressive. And the expectation is that we have a 60-day window to go out to the street, receive bids, and come up with an OPM that we prefer. We're not the ultimate say in this OPM selection. We make a recommendation to the state panel. The state panel meets 3 times in the fall. We will be plugged into one of those meetings. Right now, we're probably at the November meeting. We got an email from MSBA the other day that says the number of applicants at the October meeting is filling up. There's only 2 or 3 spots left. But we are on par to be at a fall meeting, whether it's October or November. So that's pretty much where we are now. And I know there's a school building committee meeting next Thursday night, and I'm hopeful and confident that part of that agenda will be helping to define the scope. The document itself is while it's lots and lots of detail and procurement-oriented, regulation, what is going to be most important, driven by at least some of a big chunk of what we need to do, is the scope of work around what is local preference. So I'm not that concerned that we won't be able to produce the document, the 4 corners of the procurement document, but we need to make sure, the school building committee needs to make sure that the expectations we are asking of the consultants is what we're asking them to be. And that is what is next, because we have to put into the bid document so any responsible bidder knows what they're going to be asked to do. They can't give us a price, they can't give us a proposal unless we're telling them what we want them to do. So this isn't about let's get the 4 corners of the procurement document going. This is about what do we put into that. And that's what the school building committee needs to tackle at its next meeting or 2, to effectively give Dr. Blake and myself the marching orders. When you go to the street to find an architect, what are we asking them to bid on? Right. So.
And the school building committee is going to make that decision.
Yes, they do.
Next week.
Well, I don't know if they're going to make the decision next week.
But within the next.
But if we're going to beat the July 16th deadline, we have to make it. The school building committee, has to make that decision soon.
We're talking 1 versus 2, right? Is that?
No.
That's way down the line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, I didn't mean to take us off a bunny trail, but I think it's an important point of where we're at, that this isn't July 16th is our deadline to get on a fall OPM selection meeting. And we have to have a decent enough document to go to the street with if we're going to have an expectation of getting approved to select a vendor, to select a designer and architect at an October and November timeline. So I wanted to, I guess, take us off track just slightly to say that's where we're at from my 2 cents as your procurement person. From there, then the rest of if you can read it. I don't necessarily need to read it to you. Happily, do so. But then it speaks to what the other modules are, and I have just used the maximum number of days on. This is the second page of the handout, and just said if it takes the amount of time, then this is how long it would be. So module 2, which is the whole OPM thing we just talked about, that maxes out at 150 days. The expectation is that we will have that completed with an architect hired by December. That's the pace we're on. And then we would move into module 3 that begins in December and then has a max of 300 days, which brings us from December through the following October of 27. And module 3 and 4, hopefully I'm not going too fast, but it's all on your handout. Module 3 and 4 have some overlap to them. They're done almost hand in hand. So if we're going to stay on pace with each of these modules and windows of time, the feasibility study and the schematic design report will be completed by next fall, October of 2027, which then would lead us into module 5, which is the community funding the project, going through town meeting and having an actual ballot vote on the heels of town meeting, right? So that the funding the project phase, as you see there on phase 2, module 5, has a max window of 90 days from the time that the feasibility schematic design period has concluded to how long the state's going to keep its money in the bank, or keep Ipswich's money that they've set aside for us. That would then put us at a special town meeting, or maybe the or maybe the fall town meeting, but depending on the timeline. But a town meeting and then a ballot vote, either late fall of 27 or early winter of 28. And then we would, if that is successful, then we would go into phase 3, which is final design and construction and groundbreaking and so forth. If this were to stay, just to cut to the chase, if this were to stay on pace with this, you see here in the schedule, the blowing itself out to be that the school could be open for students in September of 2029, if this schedule stays on course.
In the interest of time, I don't understand. I don't understand.
Okay, I went too far.
No, how we can get an architect when we don't know what we want. Right. So I'll ask you offline. Okay. I don't know how October 5th, I don't understand, and I'm not pushing back, but if we don't know if it's 1 or 2, and that's neither here nor there, how do we even get an architect to give us a design that we're going to vote on? If where in the process do we figure it out?
Yeah, we can talk.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I just don't understand.
So the feasibility piece precedes the architect's work.
Yeah, but
As part of the feasibility piece can be to ask the consultants to make a recommendation on such things.
It's a pretty tight timeline.
It is a tight timeline.
Yeah, because we need it done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think big picture is the MSBA has a process and it is being followed, and they kind of guide the process, and they are the experts. So it's good stuff. I think, reorienting it to how it impacts our business for this committee, I'm thinking we should add an item to the budget agenda to talk about the timing of our next override task. Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, next item. Dr. Blake, would you?
So policy JKAA is here for significant revision. You can see that there's track changes there. There's three different tabs. There's a policy revision with track changes, the current policy, and the proposed, what the proposed revised policy was. So So this was all run through legal counsel, and it's due to changes in the law that take effect in August, so we needed to get this done. As I said, our special education attorneys reviewed it, made all of the necessary changes to make sure that we were in compliance, and here it is.
You want to say
Oh,
something?
no, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, I was excited to hear what you had to say.
I'll move to support. How's that?
Okay. All right. Or you didn't, second? All right, there's a
I'll
motion.
move to support policy, the revisions in policy JKAA.
All right, moved by Greg.
Second.
Second by Jenny. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. All right, motion passes 7-0.
Walking vote. My hand is up, my hand is up.
Okay, next up, the superintendent evaluations. I will read that into the record. This is the summative evaluation for Dr. Brian Blake for the 25-26 school year. All right, overall performance. The school committee recognizes Dr. Blake's genuine commitment to students, staff, and the community of Ipswich. Members acknowledge that the 2025-2026 school year presented significant challenges and appreciate Dr. Blake's continued dedication throughout this period. After careful review, Dr. Blake has received an overall performance rating of needs improvement. While a minority of school committee members recommended a rating of proficient, most members expressed concerns regarding progress toward established goals and performance standards. Members believe that enhanced communication, collaboration, and responsiveness will help strengthen trust and confidence within the community moving forward. Standard 1, instructional leadership. Dr. Blake has received a performance rating of proficient for instructional leadership. The school committee commends Dr. Blake for increasing the amount of district data shared with the committee over the past year. Members encourage continued efforts to provide context regarding how data is analyzed and used to inform planning and decision-making. Standard 2, management and operations. Dr. Blake has received the performance rating of needs improvement for management and operations. Committee members expressed concerns regarding the budget development process, including challenges meeting established deadlines due to delayed or incomplete information and the superintendent's absence from certain discussions. Members would like to see a more collaborative and proactive approach to budget planning with greater engagement. Typing a spelling error. Greater engagement with stakeholders throughout the process and a more refined budget proposal presented for the committee's initial review. The committee also encourages continued focus on long-range financial planning to support the district's future needs and priorities. At the same time, members recognize Dr. Blake's effective management of the MSBA process and his productive partnership with the Director of Finance and Operations in meeting project timelines and deliverables. Standard 3, family and community engagement. Dr. Blake has received the performance rating of proficient for community engagement. The school committee appreciates Dr. Blake's commitment to keeping the community informed through his weekly newsletters. Members encourage continued attention to ensuring communications remain relevant and informative. Additionally, members would like to see greater consistency in responding to community questions and concerns in a professional, thorough, and timely manner. The committee also recognizes Dr. Blake's successful collaboration with the facilities director and is pleased with the progress made on important facilities and safety improvements throughout the district. Looking ahead, members encourage Dr. Blake to continue addressing safety concerns related to athletics and to further promote accountability and support of student well-being and district expectations. Standard 4, professional culture. Dr. Blake received the performance rating of needs improvement for professional culture. The school committee believes there is an opportunity to strengthen collaboration and communication with school committee members, administrators, teachers, and staff. Members would like to see more productive, respectful, and timely engagement in key areas, including hiring processes, budget development, and policy implementation. In closing, the school committee appreciates Dr. Blake's service to the Ipswich Public Schools and the work he has accomplished. As Dr. Blake enters his final year within the district, the committee looks forward to working collaboratively with him to advance ongoing initiatives, address remaining priorities, and ensure a smooth and successful transition to new leadership. Thank you. All right. The next item we have already completed, and the next item we are going to put on hold. So we are on to school committee goals review. Haley, did you want to lead us through that?
I don't have anything prepared for this.
Okay. Does anybody want to add anything here? Okay. I think we did our mid-year review quite late, and I think we were pretty on track, and we're going to talk about our summer retreat. So let's head to that item next, the summer.
Get your calendars out.
Yeah, calendar's out. Let's talk about items first, just while it's fresh in mind. I think this has come up in years past, but I was thinking we should try to get a really good start on our goals this summer so that we are like ready to go in September. And so I think, I don't know if you want to take that, Haley, where you kind of were really, or maybe just bring like a template that we could plug into, but I think you kind of set up this year so that we could
Yeah, I think
that
having
next year.
A workshop with the MS, worked with,
Alicia.
say,
Yeah.
was it Alicia? I was
Yeah,
gonna say
many
Alicia, but then I was
Alicias.
thinking, not Miss
named
Alicia,
Alicia.
but
Yeah.
that I had the name wrong because,
Alicia's sitting here.
Yes.
Different.
no, let's be clear. With Alicia, ahead of goals this year, and she was really helpful. But I think doing a workshop with the whole committee would be helpful. And I think as part of the reflection to like, how did we do this year, will help inform how we want to tweak things next year so that we can say like, you know, because there were things that came out of the mid-year assessment that we said, well, we could do better in these areas, but then what? Who's taking it? Who's doing it? How do we action it? Within subcommittees, that kind of stuff. And so I think that there are places there where if we want to say we're going to do a mid-year evaluation and a year-end evaluation, and we're trying to hold ourselves accountable, then who is accountable? If the whole committee's accountable, then, you know, we're not really tending to, and some of these things happen organically, so it's not necessarily needs to be assigned out, but some of them I think do. So I think the review, the year-end review goes hand in hand with that prep for next year, because we can kind of take those.
Given my evaluation this year, I want to make sure that we're adhering to the format of the sequence for the superintendent's evaluation. We also didn't follow that in terms of the preparation of my goals and the sequencing of things. So I think I'd also suggest that I think we collectively should have a roles and responsibilities workshop with the school committee, ASC, just to help clarify roles and responsibilities, because I think there's been a lot of gray this year.
I think that was, I think that was done my first year in the committee. I think it was very helpful. I think we had someone come to the retreat. I think it's useful.
Okay. We had talked about superintendent search, kind of hitting that topic again in the summer. Okay.
Just as an aside, I think next time we have a workshop like that on Zoom, we could record it. Can we record it? Just so we can keep watching it back over, because she had so much good information. I just wish we had recorded.
I don't know if you're allowed to record them,
Oh, really?
especially if there's discussion. I don't know.
No,
Oh, it's an open
actually-
meeting.
It's a
It was
meeting.
a Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
Yeah, so
Zoom
we could-
workshop, the
yeah.
open meeting. Anyway, had we done that, that would have been
Well, and
helpful,
to
yeah.
go back to her presentation too, had a ton of good stuff in it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
a good
true.
reference point.
That's true.
She did,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is if we could include, maybe not in the retreat, because do you typically attend the retreat? No. Some kind of a review, maybe this is just, should happen at like our first meeting, where Laura can go over the folder that she puts together for us every year, where all the key documents live. That was one of the things that came out of operations where we were requesting, like, could we have a folder where we put all this stuff? And Laura very politely was sort of like, yeah, that already exists. It's all very well organized. And so the fact that within those discussions that none of us knew to say that Laura had to remind us, like, that should be part of our, here's what's in here. And some things I think got updated throughout the year, and we did add a couple things, but for the most part, it's already there, beautifully organized. So I guess if it doesn't fit into the retreat, because I think it would be helpful for you to give us that overview, if we could earmark that. And then for other sort of operational stuff, just the idea of onboarding, and how, like, transition. So again, this idea of mid-year evaluations and year-end evaluations, I was going through the drive and looking at previous documents. There have been lots of different iterations of what the school committee has done for those templates that exist for how that's been done in the past. And so I feel like the idea of having to reinvent the wheel is not necessary, like just getting that historic information. How has it been done in the past, and how can that be passed along so that members aren't sitting here going, oh, we should be doing this better. We've been striving to do that, and there's still a lot of gaps. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but how that fits into the retreat, but it feels like there could be some, maybe that's a goal in and of itself, like operationally, how do we dive into some of getting that information and building out processes for how information is passed along. Applies in a way that, we are trained on them during onboarding. That's a big, I don't know how that fits into agenda planning.
Yeah.
That's something that, to us as we're going through the motions, trying to go through another whole goal setting thing. Well, what documentation already exists? Yes.
Yeah, I like where you're going. I feel like that, if operations maybe did like the digging and, to get the information that you're referencing. Okay. Yeah, maybe that goes into a goal and then goes there, but I'm on board. Anybody else? So we talked a lot about FEs tonight. I feel like there's a lot there, and again, I was on the working group for 2 years, and it was a significant lift, and I think it needs to be done again. There's just kind of more money, more problems. So but revisiting the rubric, like, all these, if this, then what do we do? Because we keep running into these new scenarios. Do we want to revisit there, or just we can talk then if we want to make a working group to take that on again next year?
Yeah, or how do you, so the reason I'm looking at your screen is because I'm seeing the bullet points and it says FEFIs. I just think of it as the discussion needs to be how the FEFIs and our budget overlap each other or are entwined, so that it's not just a budget discussion, then all of a sudden we have to make those decisions by February or at the end of January with the budget subcommittee. So I think we maybe at the retreat could make an outline maybe for the year. I think our budget subcommittee has met more often this spring. Like, we didn't just stop meeting after the budget was passed or ready for presentation. We've, I think, met more often. Maybe create a calendar of FEs and budget, how they overlap.
So
Yeah.
when you guys did the budget, you talked about what you were going to pull out as enrichment and enhancement out of the budget to fund with FEFIS funds. Was that kind of memorialized, or was that sort of a one-time? Do you have a policy around that? Okay.
Yeah, the policy was updated.
So
But
there's a clear definition, so for future budget years, future school committees can say, these are the clear parameters within the appropriated budget that's now eligible to have FEFIS funds used against.
yeah, but we kind of did it as we were doing it, so it might be nice to revisit it and be like, does that read right? Did that work?
So I think it's, we're all going to have to defend these decisions with,
Right.
The public asks, well, geez, I thought this money was only for enrichment and enhancement. We need to have the talking points to say, well, this is and this is why.
Right.
And, we're pulling this out of the budget because it's not a poor educational requirement.
Yeah.
So I think that's something worth building out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those big picture things are important, but even like down to what is the rubric for the twigs? What is the rubric? Like, I think the whole thing just needs another, it might be like an annual, just something we just
To your point,
continue
Greg,
to work on.
I think we need to reestablish the guidelines, because what I think we all worry about is like that continuing, like there's other things in the budget that are enhancement and enrichment. Right. So does that continue down that road of using Duffy's distribution money to offset the budget in increasing amounts? Where does the school committee stand on that?
That's the
So
discussion.
I think the important discussion to carve out is what are the requirements first? And then rank ordering everything else, and then moving the top into the available budget, and whatever's left, and do the best we can to enhance. But until we get requirements and desirements kind of morphed and prioritized, we're going to continue to stumble through this thing over and over again. And
Yeah. I'm just hearing all of that, though, like, we'd spend a lot of time on that. So
Right.
if that becomes a retreat item, I'm thinking about the format of the retreat. Either could we split up into smaller groups and have people tackle different things, or that was policy, I think that wrote that, right? So maybe is that, again, a goal for policy where we're going back and doing a round two? Because we're not going to be able to execute on all of that
Right.
by the end of a 3-hour or whatever it is.
Right.
And you're gonna hate me for saying this, but the retreat doesn't have to be one day either. My administrators meet for 2 full days over the summer to get ready. Well,
Yeah, I know, yeah.
that's in preparation for the following year, so there's a lot of work that the school committee needs to tackle, then maybe effectively, back to back, maybe one in July, one in August, I don't know.
Well, yeah, because then there's like actionable things we can do in between to come back to think, because some things we might just be questions we're asking, and then we need to go do the work. I'm in full support of that, because I feel like, and if we're, I think the goals this year were a good example of we were asking for a lot, and I think Kate articulated it well at the time, is what is it actually going to look like? And so if we want to get up to speed in a different way,
Okay. All right, so I'm hearing we have a lot of things. Goals, roles.
If we think of other things, not right now, can we send them to you?
Yeah.
It's just for your consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get to,
So this is something I thought of last year too, and I connected with the Hart House. I don't know if that is in anybody's interest, but they would be happy to host us. They're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Not that we're going to do that, but there's no room fee. So
could we have the big room, though? Would they give us the big room? Because, like, if,
They don't really.
yeah, okay. Like, we couldn't go, like, upstairs, because if we had a,
I don't know the different rooms, but she didn't say like, oh, only this room or this room. I don't know. But anyway, so I suggest maybe
what were the days again? Sorry.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
July 22nd? Wednesday, July 22nd, anyone?
Thursday, the 23rd?
Yeah, I can do the 23rd.
Is that really that easy? No, July.
July 23rd. Andrew, does that work for you?
Yes.
This is,
He's
uh-oh. Every party needs a boob.
July 23rd, I am away.
30th?
That week?
Part of the week.
the 23rd specifically?
The 23rd specifically.
16th?
Maybe the 16th?
She can't.
Away we go.
Yeah, July 30?
July 30th, yeah.
Fine.
What? You don't love it?
I don't love it, but that's fine. Yeah, it's fine if it is what it is.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
So the 30th?
Yeah.
Full day?
What? Me? I know.
Anybody?
I've been thinking about the Heart House for, I mean, not, if we decide to go there,
Does anybody
but this is big deal.
like the 29th better?
No, it's my son's birthday.
I have a big doctor's appointment.
It's a good day.
What's the time frame?
But like 5?
All day.
Do you want to do it
Yeah,
early?
5. I'll
From
connect
when
with
you
the
get there
Heart House.
until you dim,
Yeah.
until you leave.
But I think we need earlier if we're talking about more of a full day retreat. Is that what we said?
4? Are we doing 2 days?
I love
I
Greg's
don't know.
knowledge
I
of the
kind of
Heart
feel like
House.
we could always like, we could always book, like start with one, and then if we need to book one for August, we
Okay.
can decide that night.
Okay, good. So I
Decide
will.
on the 30th?
Yeah.
I think people are gonna find, I mean, we're this many months out.
Yeah,
Find a date.
and August is really hard for
Do
me.
you want to put a date?
So you want to find a second date, and then if we don't need it, we don't need it.
Okay,
But I can't
fine.
imagine we wouldn't need it, but.
Why don't we just make the 30th a longer day and just say not August?
I could be
Two to
down for
I
that.
would propose that, I mean, I think we make it a longer day, but we just get a room at Town Hall and do it there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just more, sorry, Jenny.
No, it's
I don't wanna-
fine. It's fine. It's his work.
Except for that
It's his
face.
work.
So are we talking like a,
We can go after and have a drink at the Heart House, how's that?
yeah,
But I think if we
Be
do
down
it
for that.
late afternoon, we just kind of get a room in the basement of Town Hall and just spend as much time as we need.
okay.
Or we could go in the morning, find some place to have brunch, discussion, afternoon off, come back at the Heart House. I'm thinking probably his idea. Huh?
I like that idea.
You do?
Two
Okay.
meals out one day?
We're on the 30th still. We got June 30th, July 30th.
Well, if we don't, but, I mean, we were kind of sticking to those days because of the Heart House. Like, if we,
Oh,
dare I say, don't go to the Heart House and go to Town Hall or somewhere else, or get it catered, whatever, we could do a Monday, we could do a different day, right? Wait, were you suggesting like morning or like late afternoon?
Whatever, I mean, with
I
this
can't-
much time, I can plan whenever, so it's whatever you guys are good for.
I can't do Mondays.
Okay. 21st?
Thursday the 23rd?
Of July?
Well, why don't we stick to maybe the
Okay.
30th and just see?
Yeah.
And just, we'll go as early as people can get there.
Yeah, where?
The 30th.
The 30th, Town Hall, but maybe get a room in Town Hall.
So we're sticking with the 30th, but we're as a singular date, but we're making it a longer.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
What time can people get there, though?
I mean,
12:01 a.m. I don't, you know, what time do you work?
Retirement is nice, right?
Yeah, jeez. And have breakfast right
Then
across the street
brunch,
from me
then-
at whenever.
Then appetizers.
Like 2?
For me.
Here too. I could do 9, I could do afternoon.
Right.
I mean, we could,
What if we did like a 11 to 3? And have a nice lunch, break for a lunch.
We do a morning and then an evening.
for like 3-4 hours. Yeah, I think we've done like 2 hours break, or I don't know.
Brown bag lunch.
Yeah. I like
Remember
sit down.
my first year,
I just want to be careful, just because of the company we keep.
We pay for this.
Paying for our own lunch.
Yeah, we pay
Right.
for our own meal.
Always do, yep.
the first year we went to Turner Hill.
Yeah, that's no longer an option.
No, I know. But it was really like sort of our discussion was more like an overview of the upcoming year. And I think we talked about I mean, we just were brainstorming all these great ideas, and it was such a great opportunity to do that. I know we have specific things. What?
It was energizing.
It really was, and I know there are specific things that we have to get done, but that was pretty great to just be able to talk about our vision of the next year and different things that would like to talk about as opposed to like specific hardcore things. It just is what it is. But.
Okay. So,
Could we do like a, I don't know, like 10 to 12:30 break for lunch?
yeah, I think that's
I would say, as long as we have a hard stop, knowing that if we don't get through it, we just reschedule
Yeah.
another day. Otherwise, it just goes on forever.
yeah, 24-hour meeting. Okay. So 10 to 4?
Right.
I like that.
6 hours, but that's.
Yeah.
Can you do that, Andrew, in the middle of the day?
Yeah, I'll just put it on
Okay.
block out the day on my work calendar.
10 to 4, that's perfect. That's when we can go. Our house is open.
Sounds good.
Oh, there we go. Then we'll
Full
head over to
circle.
the Hard
As
House.
it's publicly advertised, we adjourn from,
Yes.
and then go to the Hard House.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So now I want to understand what the expectation is with the workshop. Are we wishing to accomplish the workshop with the MASC about roles and responsibilities and goals that day? Like, should I be reaching out to Alicia for that day, or do we want to book that to follow?
I'm happy to reach out to her and ask what I would love is if, this is where we can ask, is this a tailored workshop? Like where she can actually help us with our goals? Or is it like what she just presented before, where like she gives us information and then we take it? Because I feel like if it could be like a more interactive thing, it would be nice to do it as part of that. But
You
it
know,
depends on.
I think with the number of topics that we have to cover, that may be one, but I don't think we could do roles and responsibilities and the other things all in that time frame. The roles and responsibilities is probably an hour and a half, 2-hour workshop, right? The goals one is probably a couple hours. And that's eaten up a lot of the time, and then we still haven't talked about the other things on the list of.
Yeah, even if we get a good start, we can always turf things to subcommittee. I think let's reach out to Alicia and ask her how long those usually are, and that'll give us a sense if we can fit them in or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Okay, June 30th, 10 to 4.
July 30th, I'm sorry.
Yeah, July 30th, the Thursday, that one. Okay. Great, that actually was easier than expected. All right, next up, approval of subcommittee meeting minutes, just because it's our last meeting, if there are subcommittees that wish to put a bow on their minutes.
Oh. Wasn't prepared to do that.
Well, are you going to be meeting? Is athletics meeting? Yeah, there are some that are meeting.
Yeah, we're going to be meeting next Tuesday. We can do ours.
Okay.
Mutual concerns.
All right.
Though that's the other thing. Are you going to set the different subcommittees for everybody to look at? Or or do we fill that out at the
Yeah.
summer retreat?
Yep.
Anyway, just,
Yeah, send me your, yeah, because we have to reorg. So for now, I guess, well, because it's the next chair that will make those recommendations. So I guess don't send them to me. Send them,
maybe can you send the list of all the options for people to,
it's on the website.
oh, I mean, I know where it is. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk generally about it, but then the next chair can kind of do that. All right. Any new business?
May I have a question?
Yes.
Back to item H, does the committee intending to take a vote on
We did,
in public session?
yes.
Okay, I missed that. Must have nodded off, my bad. Apologies.
No, it was
Again.
earlier.
Yeah.
All right.
I am paying attention
You did
most
great.
of the
You
time.
weren't in the room. You're doing great.
Oh, I wasn't? Okay.
All
now
right,
I don't feel so
consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve this consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Craig,
Second.
second by Paul, all in favor? 7-0 passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
I wanted first, yeah.
Yeah. I could only hear moved by Jenny, second by Jen. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned at 10:05.
I wanted the honor of my first meeting.